I almost made it. Darn. I gotta fix the green screen and so close to being prepared. All right. Well, better late than never, and it's quite barely late on this fine Monday evening. Friends, thinkers, gamers, happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. For those of you who don't know me or don't know what we're about here, let me introduce myself and us to you. You found your way to Tales of Praxis. I'm your host, Aaron Suduko, the founder of withaterriblefate.com, your home for all literary studies and celebrations of video games. If you identify as a gamer, if you identify as someone who loves great stories, and your medium of choice is the video game, and you read them in the way that other people do novels or films or plays, you found your home. Welcome to it. You can find all manner of content studying and analyzing video game stories on withaterriblefate.com, from long form written articles to podcasts to convention lectures to streams such as this. And indeed, what I've been doing for the better part of a year at this point is this series called Tales of Praxis. I'm a philosopher of games, and I work in a variety of things to do with video game storytelling. But last year, Bandai Namco had a little announcement and published something that tugged at my heartstrings and reached deep into my past, namely a remastered version of Tales of Symphonia, which was the very first video game story I played growing up and really helped to shape me as a person and a gamer and someone who would become interested in philosophy as well. So I decided, I've celebrated and studied so much to do with storytelling in games since then, but I had really kind of kept away categorically from studying the Tales series because it was just too close to my heart to really look at analytically. And I decided it's time to move on from that. It's time to give it the good, long, hard look it deserves and try to understand what makes this series so damn special as works of art, works of storytelling for me, and also for so many other gamers who get so many wonderful things from them. So we're diving deep into Bandai Namco's Tales series in two ways. One way is with long form written analyses, which you can find on withaterriblefate.com, with some more coming soon, and I'll have an update on that in a moment. But then the other part of the series is what you have found yourself in this evening, these wonderful live book clubs I've had the pleasure of running with all of you on Twitch since last March. With some diehard Tales fans such as Grail and Pottery who are in attendance. Welcome back, my dear friends. And with some people who have nominal familiarity with Tales, and some people who don't know Tales at all and just really love video game stories and want the opportunity to think about them, get a different understanding of how they work, and get to know the Tales series for the first time. So no matter what your familiarity with the series, you are welcome. Consider yourself home. It's so nice to have you. I hope you had a great weekend, and it's so nice to see you back here. Well, it's true, Grail. All things are relative. If time travel has taught us anything, like we were talking about last week, it's the relativity of all things. Hey, Pottery, and good evening to all. Yes, we're all doing well. It's a good Monday vibe, I think. Right now, we're working through the back portion of a Tales of Grace's F study on the stream. So you've come to the right place if you're interested in everything from the coming of age of a boy who would be Lord to understanding the generational trauma that can be imputed on an individual to studying deeply and metaphysically how friendship can empower people to become different versions of themselves. And that's what I got on the back of my baseball card for Tales of Graces as of this point. But we are certainly not done yet. What do I have for my weekend updates for you as we're warming up and easing into the week? Well, before I get up to date on Tales stuff, Pottery, especially since you're here, I'll let you know. I was hoping you'd be here. I finally started Inscription because I was catching up with an old friend of mine and a former game analyst for With a Terrible Fate, Nate Randall, who lives in my neck of the woods now. And we were trying to figure out what to do on a Sunday evening. And I made him watch El Camino because he hadn't seen it yet, which I considered a travesty. But he is one of the people, such as you, who has been bullying me for quite a while at this point to start Inscription. So yes, suffice it to say, I am having a great time. I'm going to try to withhold most of my reactions until I'm done with it because I can tell I'm going to absolutely devour it based on the night we had. I think I started working through it with him maybe at 10:30, and we're feeling our age at this point. People keep telling us we're young, but we're feeling our age. I was ready to go to bed, as I would be in bed on any other night, and we ended up playing until I think about 1:30 in the morning, which was the first time I had done that for a while, with anything non-Tails at least. So I'll tell you for context, Pottery, because I assume you'll know. I got roughly to finding the cartridge of film. So that's where I'm at. I certainly got deep enough to get really, really excited and interested in where they're going with things. And I imagine it won't take me long to get through it at this rate. No, it's fun. That's the other half of always having a backlog, Grail. You have to bully people into working through their backlog. For instance, he was also reminding me that I need to pick up Alan Wake 2 as soon as possible, which I couldn't be more excited about, but life happens, Tales happens, and so it goes. How many runs? I'm going to embarrass myself if you ask that. I'd maybe between 3 and 5, I think. Yeah, I had a pretty sweet run where I almost got to the third boss, but then it's just, I had a misplay one turn in one random throwaway fight, and it all fell apart like a house of cards. And that's the best pun I've got at the top of a Monday evening stream. Oh, I appreciate it. You're kind, Pottery. Well, it's funny. It's obviously not the same kind of gameplay style in terms of it being a card game versus a shooter, but I didn't have in my head that it was a roguelike, and I could feel the many, many hours I spent working through Returnal actually helping me with just having a mental model of how to work through it. So I felt like I had a leg up relative to maybe some other people going into it, just because I lived in Returnal for quite a while. Yes, it is. And I think the first deck builder game that I've ever played, or at least have played in a long time. So interesting to be working in that very different kind of design language. So anyway, needless to say, I'm sure that we will have plenty more to discuss about that as I work through it in short order. Yes, you should, Grail. Then we can all talk about it, because the one rule, as we know on the Tales of Praxis stream, is we talk about every game except the one that we're streaming, and I love it. But speaking of Tales, the other thing I'll say by way of updating on my written work is it was a fun weekend for me also in terms of working through a pile of research on this Fantasia article. Surprise, surprise. I know you'll all be shocked to hear that I think its scope is going to be a little larger than what I was expecting initially, but in a good way. I'm going to try to still keep it tight to really just start some conversations and invite people to play these games in some new ways and focusing on things that they might not have in the past, without being the kind of length and sort of study that I did for Demlos and De Nomos. But the thing that was fun about it was as I sat down to do a little bit more research and think about kind of the implications of what it is that I want to study in Fantasia, it actually helped me with something that has been kind of a background problem for me for a long time. And I wonder whether it's relatable to any of you, which is, for those who don't know, as the Tales series got started, these were not the first 3 entries, but some of the first games in the series were this kind of trilogy that happened in the same world, in the same time continuity, in a way that's relatively rare for the Tales series. So the very first one, the one that I'm focusing on for this next study, is Tales of Fantasia, and Tales of Symphonia also exists in that continuity, as does Dawn of the New World. And it's always been kind of an interesting challenge for me to negotiate those 3 games in conversation with one another, because as I just said, they quite clearly exist in the same world, and there are a lot of similar things going on between them in terms of you get some character overlap, you get some like mechanics of the world overlapping, but especially with all of the times and timelines that they span, it's been hard for me to sit down and ask, okay, what is this trilogy as a whole concerned with? And what are the themes that unite all 3 of these games in a way that's interesting and illuminating? And one thing that was interesting to me about this look at Tales of Fantasia that I'm doing is I think the more time I've spent sitting with this character from Tales of Fantasia and thinking about why he's interesting to me, the more I've started to think, well, he might actually be a kind of a cipher, not to, illuminate the once and final meaning of those 3 games, because I don't think that's a real thing at the end of the day, but to give you a cool kind of unified thematic insight into one particular interesting thematic motif, I guess, if you want to call it that, that comes up in all three of the games in a way that I think is pretty powerful for the player in terms of shaping how they think about those games and also how they can engage with the world beyond those games. So it hopefully won't be too long and extensive a treatise because I want to work through many more of these studies and conversations with you, but I got excited thinking about it in that way over the weekend, and so hopefully you all will get excited about it too and we have the chance to chat about it. All right, so that's the update for the written article. I think you guys are talking about roguelikes, so I'll just let you keep chatting about that for a moment as I go through this. We also, this is kind of just a holdover update from last week because we kind of decided it on the stream. I still haven't posted the update yet, but I think it's definitely safe to say at this point, after we finish this Tales of Graces run, we'll be diving into Tales of Xillia and Xillia 2 on the stream. So whether you're a longtime fan of those two games, speaking of games that exist in the same world as each other, or if you're like me and you've never managed to get through them, either way, we're going to have a hell of a time. I'm even thinking it might be fun and possible to extend the stream schedule a little bit, but we can talk about that as things get closer in terms of what works for the cohort and the group mind or doesn't. But very excited to see where that goes from here. Is it really called Exilia? I have never heard that before. That's amazing to me because that's the last thing I would have guessed based on the way that it's stylized. But thank you. I mean, if we have consensus on that, I will certainly yield to the wisdom of the crowd. All right, Grail. Well, we'll see about that and think about it as it gets closer. You know, I'm a little wishy-washy on when and why to ascribe costumes to characters, especially during a first run. But I wouldn't put it out of the question. I'll say that much about it for now. All right. I think the last kind of Monday easing into the stream that I wanted to do before we dove into Graces. That's fascinating to me. It's so interesting to me because like that's the last way I would have imagined that you pronounce it. And I would guess, going by the titles of the other games in the series, it's probably not anything that's definitively said in the game, so we probably don't have a definitive answer, right? Unless Bamco has said at one point or another in the series. But as I've said, I am happy to retrain myself, but I'll hope that you'll all bear with me because it certainly will be an exercise in retraining since I've been saying Xillia forever. I'm just further outing myself as someone who has played, at this point especially, virtually every game in the series except those, but we're going to fix that. So, as I was saying, the one thing that you might also know if you've been following the streams, especially since last week, is that I went to Japan with my friend and colleague for With a Terrible Fate, Dan Hughes, for his bachelor party, actually, over the last couple of weeks. So we've been doing stream warm-ups for the last little bit with little bits and pieces of show and tell from my time in Japan. So hopefully that's something that you guys are enjoying and not finding to be too much. But it's fun for me to share all of this with you, and I was definitely thinking of you while I was there. So we've got a few more things this evening. One, you might actually already be able to see. It's another shirt, but I did this thing while I was there. I went to Nara. And if you're not familiar, Nara, it's one of the old former seats of imperial power in Japan. So there's this amazing, like breathtaking Buddhist temple there, which houses, I don't know if it's technically speaking the biggest Buddha statue in the world, but it certainly feels like that when you walk into the temple. And it was one of those kind of cathedral-sized projects where the emperor at the time, when Japan was going through a lot of famine and strife and other issues, basically tried to rally the country together around this giant feat of engineering and development to build this enormous temple in the way that a lot of Western countries did with cathedrals, this kind of construction project that outlived him, but was finished, I forget how many years later, but quite a few years later. And around that temple, the other thing that Nara is known for, as the shirt suggests, is that also for well over 100 years at this point, I forget when they first kind of showed up there, but there are deer that just hang out everywhere, treated as their home, are totally desensitized to people. And if you approach them, you can bow at the deer and they'll bow back. and they've kind of been trained to do this as a dog would, with the promise of food. So it's actually very cute and funny, because you hear about the bowing deer. What you don't hear about so much is you can buy crackers to feed them. And so you can bow and they'll bow back, but then if you don't feed them, they'll get very ornery very quickly and start headbutting you and trying to find food in your pockets, and it gets out of hand very fast. But on the whole, they are wonderful and sweet creatures. I teased this a little bit on Twitter by sharing one of my favorite pictures from the entire trip, which was me taking a selfie with, I think, my favorite doe. I was joking because, again, as I said, we went for Dan's bachelor party, and really the only girls we hung out with who were in attendance were the female deers. But it was a lot of fun. I think one of my favorite things about Japan really was getting to know and spend time with some amazing wildlife that I didn't expect. So if you ever have the chance to go to Japan, I strongly encourage you to check out Nara if you have the opportunity to do that. So that's one. While we're doing kind of cultural artifacts from Japan as opposed to pop cultural artifacts, another one of my favorite places that we went was the Ryoanji Temple. Oh, that's a mouthful for someone who doesn't speak Japanese, in Kyoto, which is one of the most famous Japanese Zen Buddhism temples in the country. And I think I can show this pretty well. I got, among other things, a paperweight that shows you this is one of the most famous Zen rock gardens in the world, and it's another thing that just boggles the mind, and I really wasn't prepared for going in there, because it's a pretty vast expanse, this rock garden, where by design you can't really see any nature from there, not really any trees or bushes or grass, things like that. That's all on the outside of the temple, but you walk in and there's just this vast expanse of rock that's designed for you to sit by and use as an object for meditative contemplation. And I didn't know this, but Dan was telling me, if you look at the different kind of islands in the rock garden, the reason that they look like islands is because they actually are meant to represent different actual physical islands in the world around Japan. So different mountains, different parts of the sea, and things like that. So a case of art actually representing the world, not dissimilar to another really famous temple, probably one of the most famous temples in Japan that we saw in Kyoto, which is actually on the back of the 10 yen coin, which is designed not to represent the physical world, but actually to represent the Pure Land, which is basically the state of nirvana to which Buddhism aspires. So I was telling Dan, I didn't really realize that part of the worship over there was constructing these like physical representations of various aspects of the world and the metaphysical world, but it was really interesting. You get a sense of just how these locations were architected to make you feel as if you're a part of something larger than yourself, and that really is a special kind of presence that you get when you're in there. Not dissimilar, honestly, and I don't say this to be flippant about it, to the feeling that I sometimes get walking through the architecture of games, especially those which feel constitutive of spiritual journeys, like a lot of the Tales games, as I've talked about before with stuff like Tales of the Abyss. So I got that paperweight. I got some beautiful little bookmarks showing little portraits of the temple. So if you're ever in Kyoto, it's the home to so many just breathtaking temples like this. Here's another one of the Stone Garden. So really encourage you to check it out if you get the chance. A Disney princess? What does that mean? I feel like that could be a very good thing or a very bad thing, Ray. You're gonna have to expound on that. So that's our cultural education, mostly by way of Dan's East Asian Studies background for the start of the stream. In the more pop culture-y vein, since I kind of outed myself last time as also being a minor plushie fanatic, I figured I'd share a few more of those with you. I know there's, interestingly, not a lot of overlap, at least among those who have found their way to the stream, between Tales fans and Final Fantasy fans, which is interesting to me as well, but it overlaps in my case. So I got some Final Fantasy stuff from Square Enix's store. Okay, I'm not going to turn off the green screen again because this is almost too hilarious, but the invisible blob you see is a cactuar from the Final Fantasy series. And I love so much that he's just my little invisible guy. Actually, if you know the cactuars from the series, they're sufficiently mischievous that it kind of makes sense they would figure out some kind of cloaking technology. And a Moogle, another classic mascot of the Final Fantasy series. because I got a Tonberry the last time I was there, and I figured he just needed some friends. If you're a Capcom fan, one of my favorite JRPGs, which I've published about in the past in terms of how it integrates storytelling with some of the cultural and religious thinking in Japan, is Okami. Got a little plush of the White Wolf, the avatar of Amaterasu, the sun goddess, whom you play as in Okami. And then, for all the From Software fans, where I do know there's more overlap with the stream, our boy Torrent from Elden Ring. I didn't get a lot of Elden Ring stuff while I was over there, but I couldn't ignore a beautiful little representation of the little engine that could from that masterpiece of a game. I know. I'm holding my breath for Rebirth, Pottery, because you know me. I'm sure I'm just gonna vanish into it for roughly a week and a half to 2 weeks until I just devour it in one go. I think I mentioned this last week. I don't remember, but the time has come to submit potential panel and lecture topics for PAX East, the convention which happens in Boston every year. And one of the ones that I submitted, because it's happening in March, was just, okay, if you were nuts enough to play Rebirth as soon as it came out, and you just need a group of people to work through all of your feelings about it with, let this panel at the convention just be a space to talk and work through its relationship with the rest of the series. So I'll be interested to see whether they pick that one, because it's definitely on everyone's minds, understandably so. Oh, I see what you mean, Grail. Yes, I did become a little bit of a Snow White in terms of loving nature and all the animals while I was over there. Yeah, I could tell you probably more stories about the animals I met than the people that I met, for whatever that's worth. I'm gonna say that's a good thing. Ooh, yeah, Grail, that's a good segue for you, because I told you last week you're going to have to tell us about your figures. So, especially if there are any, tell us if you found any tail stuff, please, but also any other relevant stuff that you discovered or brought home. Tell us. Yeah, I think the most fun thing that most people have done between Remake and Rebirth has been theory crafting about, as you say, the scene. So I have some thoughts. Dan has had some thoughts. We've wrestled about it. I'm one of those on the side of believing that after Remake, I mean, I was so blown away by that I truly I believe that they have a clear vision of what they want to do, and I trust them with it. So I think they can do no wrong, and I'm really excited. I loved Remake so much, but it's interesting, and I almost hope that PAX chooses this panel, because I might or might not have mentioned this on the stream before. My experience publishing on Remake also proved to me beyond the shadow of a doubt that it is one of the most controversial games that has come out in quite a while, because some people love it and some people hate it, and they are really loud about arguing over why it's just a betrayal of everything valuable that has ever happened in art and storytelling. Which is almost more impressive to me that Square was able to put together such a purely and deeply controversial work of art on the back of such a beloved series. So it'll be interesting to see the reception that this gets. There's no doubt about that. Didn't find any Tails figures. All right, but you found a poster. That's something. I wasn't expecting you would even be able to find that. So that's very cool. Yeah, Padre, you took the words out of my mouth in terms of all the anxiety around a twist that already happened. And a lot of my work on Remake, if you haven't read it, has to do with sort of how it plays with and subverts audience expectations to tell a story about that in a way that I think is just really cool, in the truest sense, unique amongst stories that we've got in modern times, or maybe ever, and could really only be done on the back of something as successful and interactive as Final Fantasy VII, and even without really breaking the fourth wall either. It checks all of the interesting and cool boxes for me. So I truly could not be more excited about it. I'm sure we will continue to get on the Rebirth hype train as it gets closer, but I'll try to juggle it with Tails stuff so it doesn't get out of control. All right, so we had plushies. I have a few other collector's editions to show you real quick, and then we'll dive into Graces. So one that I wanted to show you in the spirit of the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 that I shared with you last week was I also picked up this beauty, which was right next to it on the shelf. I might have mentioned it last week, but I know I didn't show you. The Japanese copy of the Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which I will admit, and maybe you can decide that I'm a crazy person for this. I don't really mind. I might call myself a crazy person for this, but I already had actually the one that was released in the US. But I wanted to show you all the more because we've been talking about packaging differences. And just look at this. This is the version that we got in the US with just a very light etching of the center of the Monado and nothing on the back, versus the Japanese version with the Mechonis on the front. And then look at this. I flipped it over, and this was a big part of why I got it. Just this beautiful blue back with all of the different symbols that can be inscribed in the center of the Monado over the course of the game. Just, I was never really a believer in that opinion that, the stuff we get outside of Japan never really holds a candle to what they get in the country, until I spent more time over there and looked around at what they had. Also, speaking to that point, inside it has most of the same stuff, but something else that we didn't get in ours. And for the life of me, I don't know why they wouldn't have given it to us. The game, but also this beautiful high-res steelbook for the game. And of course, the grass on the plastic version is green screened out. But look at that steelbook on this side, with the steelbook that we also didn't get for Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which I picked up. So really happy to have that in the collection, and wish it were easier to get that stuff outside of Japan. So that's Xenoblade Chronicles. And then the last thing I wanted to show you actually was something that I'll admit I already opened. We're getting into Tales territory now, so this is the best segue that I can do for Tales of Graces. I found this premium edition of Tales of Arise. And I'll tell you, I was on the fence about getting it because, again, I already have a version of Tales of Arise, which I really quite like. But I decided I wanted to get it because this is who I am, for really one thing in particular. And I can show you. It's actually hiding on my outfit, and I'm sure in future streams I'll dress myself in a way that it's more prominent. I'll take it off and show you. This is the only place I've seen this in any collections of Tales memorabilia. It's a pin that they did with what has become the new icon for the series, the little book and quill, which I absolutely love. To my knowledge, and you guys might know this better than I think they introduced it with Tales of Arise, because I haven't really seen it show up on any stuff from the series prior to Tales of Arise. But I love that the series is unified under an icon. I love that it foregrounds how literary the series is in exactly the way we've been extolling and studying for the better part of a year at this point. And so it just felt like exactly the kind of thing that I would be really proud to wear and represent as we're working through Tales of Praxis together in our Tales specific studies. So yes, I got an entire box collection just for a pin, and no, I will not apologize for it. The rest of the collection actually is pretty cool and has some other things that I wanted to show you just quickly. Interestingly, a lot of it is in English, even though this is the Japanese collector's edition. But if you look on the inside, so you have this great inside cover with the seal of the Sovereign on it, and a wonderful little poetic introduction to the game. So I'll read it to you. It says, "On the planet Dana, reverence has always been given to Rena, the planet in the sky, as a land of the righteous and divine. Stories handed down for generations became truth and masked reality for the people of Dana. For 300 years, Rena has ruled over Dana, pillaging the planet of its resources and stripping people of their dignity and freedom. Our tale begins with two people born on different worlds, each looking to change their fate and create a new future." So I thought that was really interesting because, at least from my reading of the game and having played it pretty recently, that idea of part of what had happened in the last 300 years being the interpretation of Rena as this kind of almost like a holy land of angels. It almost smacks of Crucius to me a little bit, which I didn't get from the game at all. And so it was really interesting to me that that was how they chose to represent it on kind of the front cover of the game, if you will. I'm still waiting for a Tales character in Smash 2 so we can all virtually high-five each other when that finally happens. Well, and that's a whole other thing, Grail. I mean, we can put a pin in that until we go back to Tales of Arise in more depth. But I mean, you know how I have some pretty strong views about how the series thinks about fate differently than a lot of other stories. But I think there is a sense in which she's trying to change part of her heritage, which I think is closer to how I would say the Tales games oftentimes think about the meaning of fate, because she has these thorns that she wants to get rid of, right? Which I imagine is what they're alluding to. So got a soundtrack hanging out. But then the other cool little goodies, in addition to the series pin, a little pin with the seal of the Sovereign on it, which I'm sure will also find its way into Aaron's wardrobe, maybe at a con or some such. One of these great little, I don't even know what to call this, but it's something that has become, I guess, very popular in Japan, because I don't see it outside of there, but it was all over the place at shops there. This kind of little, like translucent cutout that you can stand up in a stand that has some nice thickness to it. So Shion and Alphen walking in their typical poses in front of the, like the Tales of Arise backdrop, which you can stand them up with. And then some nice postcards of the beautiful landscapes of the worlds. And of course, because no collection would be complete without it, some mighty chibi stickers, and then an art book in the back. Yes, an acrylic stand. Is that the term for it? There you go. Thank you, Grail. Yeah, a translucent acrylic little representation of our friends. I know. I feel like you could make a case for virtually any of the heroes being in Smash, especially, and I think I said this the last time it came up, since the introduction of multiple Xenoblade characters. I feel like that just opens the door for basically any Tales character you want. I'm biased, obviously, but you know me. Here on Tales of Praxis and With a Terrible Fate, we offer you perspective, which is intrinsically biased. Yeah, Sophie would be a great get too, no doubt about that. But so many options. All right, friendos. Well, I think that's all Aaron has for show and tell. Oh, also for the From Software fans, I don't think I mentioned this last time, but a fun thing that I found on one of the shops actually sporting, and now it's going to break because I took it off, the Ring of Favor. The same company that did those great shirts, which I've been modeling, Torch, also has a ring collection from the games, which is very, very cool. So I don't do fashion souls so much in the games, but I suppose it's not too bad to do it in real life. I thought about it, Pottery, though, because, like, I mean, you know me, you can imagine I was standing in front of the selection of, I think they did 7 or 8 of the rings. And so I was saying, okay, which one is most me? And something that, for Aaron at least, feels deeply Aaron is having a variety of different interests and passions and life projects in which I have my hands. I feel like there is a sense in which, as has been the case for some of the articles that I've worked through, I have a tendency to dig deep into them and get really focused in a way that pays off when I work all the way through with single-mindedness. But if I take a break and pivot to something else in the middle, all of my focus kind of falls apart, and then I have to stop and go back to square one a little bit. So that felt a little Ring of Favor to me in spirit. And so between that and the aesthetic of the ring, I said, okay, that feels kind of essential to the Aaronness of it all. For whatever it's worth. All right. Yes, Grail. I'm gonna say a few things about what I'm thinking in terms of where we are in Tales of Graces thematically. So please, while I'm doing that, feel free to give me directions in terms of where you recommend we go next, and I'll follow your lead once we jump in. I know, it was really interesting to me that they didn't keep that as a consistent element of the ring across its various uses in the series, but it's always going to be the ring that breaks to me, because that's part of what it originally was. And I feel like when you talk about like the Ring of Favor and this fickle goddess that has blessed it, it makes sense for part of its nature to be that it breaks if you ever turn your back on it. So that's how it reads to me, at least for what that's worth. I don't know if you can see it on this resolution, but the other fun thing is that this little pendant around my neck is actually a teeny tiny little crystal lizard, which I also picked up from Torch. It's very cute because the box that it comes in, you open it and there's a picture of a Titanite shard on the inside. Like, oh, you caught one and you get a Titanite shard. So they do great stuff. I love the care that's put into products like that, and just the story that can be told with packaging. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the adventures we've been on for the last week. But speaking of adventures we've been on for the last week, let me open the Tales of Graces F journey with a few reflections on where we are. I'm so excited to be back in this game because like any Tales game, and the further we get into the Tales of Praxis series together, the more we see the connections between them as well. But the more I find myself sitting with it and thinking about it, just the more meat I find on the bones and the more excited I am about it. So I'm really excited right now as we're working through Act 4, which I'll remind you, this is my first time playing, in seeing how it unwinds these ideas that we've been wrestling with in the first part of it together, namely what it is to reshape our identities, what it is to support our communities, and what it means to wrestle with death and the meaning of life with the certainty of death in front of us. And as I was sitting down and trying to get ready for this stream, I feel like part of what's fun to me, especially not knowing where this fourth act is going, is I have a feeling for how all of these themes might be connected in a way that's really interesting, but I'm not quite sure yet if that's what the game wants to say. So I'm just going to tell you something that was on the top of my head. Certainly not, going to be anticipating that this is how the fourth act wraps up, but it's got me excited to keep track of all these relationships we have continuing to evolve over the course of the fourth act. So hopefully it'll be exciting to you too. So we talked last time a lot about how many of these characters seem to be moving on from the tether or anchor or baggage, if you prefer, of their various past connections and trying to instead be very present in supporting those around them with whatever the reality of life happens to be right now. So we talked about this in cases like Malik and trying to help Fendel in the present and moving on from his past, especially in that side quest where we saw the resistance basically trying to take advantage of his past in order to further their own agenda, right? And how it even helped the leadership of Fendel to see what it meant to support their citizens in a different way. We saw it with Asbel thinking about what it means to become a lord and that great metaphor of tending to the flowers around him in the way that his father did and recognizing, I don't need some big grand agenda to lead the lordship on this great journey or this great story. I just need to help everyone around me flourish in their own particular ways in what little ways I can. And then of course also his gesture of making Sophie his daughter in order to change her context and help her to inhabit the present moment a little differently. And of course we also saw that in that really touching moment of Richard, instead of retreating into isolation, sharing his childhood sanctuary and retreat with Sophie as a way of helping her to be present and supported in her relationships in a different way. Now, something else that we talked about was this sense in which Act 4 seems to be challenging the characters to confront what it means to live after their stories have been completed, both, of course, on the metafictional level in the sense that the base game is done, but we're still here looking at these characters, but also in the sense that if you think of what the base game represents for these characters, they've all basically been on their arc. They've had their journey, they've had their insights, but life goes on. And so after you've kind of set that purpose aside and you're done with that chapter, how do you figure out how to live after that and find meaning in the world? And so I find myself wondering, in light of those two threads that we've been thinking about, whether maybe part of the challenge that the fourth act is presenting us and the characters is to sort out just what it means to live outside the threat of conflict at all. Conflict in the sense that, again, if you think about just what it is to be engaged with a story, what drives a story, what motivates characters to go on these journeys, what structures the various parts of a story, it's conflict between different characters with different ends. That's the whole notion of a protagonist versus an antagonist in typical story structures, right, of the sort that we see in Tales games usually. But one thing that I think thinking about this crystallized for me that's pretty interesting about Graces, which I don't really see in many other stories, and especially not in many other Tales games that I've played, is that the main conflict in that base game that we finished together isn't really caused by the typical kind of protagonist-antagonist relationship of two groups or people in conflicts with different agendas who are trying to achieve something. It's not a case where we have Van and his various generals fitting into the four general stereotype that you get in a lot of Japanese storytelling, trying to achieve some radical transformative vision for the world, and some other group is fighting against that. Instead, we get this picture of a scared and abused creature, Lambda, who expects that there's going to be conflict and betrayal just based on how he grew up and how he was how he was mistreated, right? And so he comes into the world after all of this abuse that he suffered on Fodra, thinking, as Richard exclaims after Lambda has taken hold of him, everyone's going to betray me, so I'm just going to retreat from that and annihilate humankind. And so as I was thinking about that kind of unusual nature of what it was to resist and ultimately defeat by saving Lambda in the main game, I found myself thinking maybe part of what the challenge in the fourth act now is that, along with Asbel, what it is that we're supposed to show Lambda, this thing that Asbel has taken into himself with the promise of showing the world, the possibility that we can live in the world without conflict. And when these kinds of narrative conflicts of the sort that we saw in the base game are taken off the table, and there's no more question of, oh, you know, we have to satisfy a sense of meaning in our life by having these life projects that are structured according to conflicts. Once that's gone and we're just thinking about the simple nature of living and cohabiting with each other, like a lot of these various plots in the fourth act seem to be focused on, the only kind of conflict that remains is, you know, the ultimate narrative terminus of our lives, which is death, right? We can try to cleanse ourselves of as much needless conflict in our lives as possible, but at the end of the day, like we've also been talking about in the fourth act up to now, our lives are in a certain sense narratively structured because they have a beginning at the start of our life, various events that happen, choices that we make that we hope will have a certain sense of narrative closure and conclusion by the time our lives themselves conclude, morbid as that is, but morbid in a sense that is pretty intimately related to these themes that Graces is thinking about and that they're very explicitly dwelling with in the fourth act, right? Everyone seems to be wrestling with the meaning of death and what that implies for life. So I found that really interesting as just a way to set the scene for this fourth act, which seems to be set beyond the bounds of a typical narrative conclusion, where the characters are at once recognizing there's a way to just be happy and exist in the world without this kind of structured drama that we expect from the arc of a JRPG, or this personal character arc of trying to reform ourselves in some way. We can just live and be happy in our communities, but there's still this ultimate narrative closure coming with our own deaths. And so how do we adjudicate that with the desire to simply live and be happy with others? So that's the frame I'm using for kind of thinking about where we're going to be going next. I'm sure we'll touch on various threads of it as we go forward. And I'm sure that some of it too will, you know, consist not just in thinking about life ending, but also, to pick up on the theme that I think we'll be going to next, life evolving, right? Because the other kind of subplot so far in this fourth act has been the notion that monsters are evolving in relation to humans. We don't really know why. We think it has something to do with the core of Fodra, which has inspired the party to make a return visit to Fodra, which I clocked last time, unless there's something from the base game I'm forgetting, which I don't think there is going to be poor Lambda's first return to Fodra since he suffered all that abuse at the hands of Emerald, and since he was also helped by Cornell to think about what it is to be a person, be an individual, to survive, which became his core directive until Asbel confronted him and kind of opened his mind to considering other frameworks through which to think about the world. So I'm very excited to see how that all goes. And I think we'll be heading off there now, potentially by way of some side quests, courtesy of Grail. So thank you, Grail. All right. Looks like we are going to Zavhert first. All right. So we will start there. I think there are a few more things in chat. And then we will, as Grail says, take to the skies. Well, friends, 44 minutes flat, and I was a minute late, so that's 43 minutes. Not bad as far as Tales of Praxis goes. Thank you for indulging me. It's so nice to be easing into this week with some more regularly scheduled video game studies with all of you. I really missed it. So nice to be back here, and I got a feeling we're going to extract a nugget or two more of really cool insights from Tales of Graces before all is said and done. So let's dig in. Welcome back to Tales of Praxis. Oh no. I'm catching up on the messages and I'm seeing the threatening promise of "if I want to die" as a side quest option. I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for that yet, but maybe by the time we get to that point in the list, things will have changed. So, Grail, you'll forgive me. I think I saw you posting about this in the chat, but obviously I had all of my riffing to get through. Overall convention experience, were you happy you went back? Did you enjoy it? Was there anything that surprised you, good or bad? Do you expect you'll go again next year? Give us the long and the short of it. Make some chocolate somehow. Head to Fermat's house. Okay. Fermat's house, isn't that in the Enclave? I might just be misremembering things now. So everyone, well, we have a skit here. We can start with that.
The people of Zavert seem to be in higher spirits these days than they used to be.
Perhaps, but there's still such a heavy curtain of doom and gloom over this city.
Those are strong words, Your Majesty. So, if I may ask, how would you go about lifting that curtain?
First and foremost, I would change the soldiers' uniforms. My heart sinks to look upon such grim livery.
Hey, what if we got rid of the hats? If the citizens can see a soldier's face, they might seem more approachable.
Rejected. A hat is a soldier's pride.
Perhaps we should have different colors for each regiment's uniform. Such a variety of hues would make a cheerful impression.
My eyes bleed at the thought.
What if maybe you added a cute lacy frill to the cuffs of the coats? And maybe some designer logos?
Yes, that might work.
Your Majesty?
And perhaps a sparkling white coat of paint for Fendel Tower. I'm certain that would raise spirits.
With a giant neck popping out.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
You can't be serious.
Or am I?
Alright, so I think we have chocolate. I guess I'll just double check before we go on. It's this ingredient, right? Ah, there we go. That endgame problem of having way too many things in our inventory. Oh, I think we actually don't have chocolate right now? Ah, drag. Okay, well, I do know where we can get chocolate. We just have to go to the Enclave first after all. Get chocolate somehow, as if we hadn't seen a fountain of it during our journeys through the world. Columbus, aka the Drive to Hell. Yeah, there's got to be something that happens in Cleveland, right? I feel like that's an adequate destination. There we go. All right. Now back to Zavert. How long a drive is that for you, Grail? Was it a major pilgrimage? You know me and my sense of geography. Is this Fermat's house? Residence. That's what my memory is telling me. No, guess not. Okay. It'll probably say outside the door. I feel like they're pretty good at marking significant locations. Residence. And yet I can't not check. Oh, well, here's someone who looks like a side quest at least.
Hello, Pascal. Do you
Oh, it is Fermat's house.
I'm Sagan. It's been a while.
Oh, hey, Sagan. I know I'm all behind the times and stuff, but big congrats on the wedding.
Ooh, more wedding plot, yes.
Why is Fair Ma asleep? She
Yeah, I hear you, Grail. A 2-hour drive to get ready for a convention is a lot, because, boy, conventions take a lot out of you. Yeah, find one in Cleveland. There's got to be some good ones.
Is she hurt?
Lately, Fermat has found it difficult to eat. I tried to convince her that she must, for the sake of the child if nothing else. And yet...
It's unusual to hear of a woman losing her appetite this far into a pregnancy.
lately she seems to be having trouble even getting out of bed.
Come on, Sagan! You're gonna be a daddy soon! That means you gotta step up your game!
Honestly, this all just happened so fast. We only decided to marry after we found out about the pregnancy.
Hello there. Are you hurting? No, I'm okay. I just worry that I'm not fit to be a mother.
Oh, man.
If you give birth, doesn't that make you a mother? It takes more than that. I have to protect the baby and make sure to raise it right. So what about a father? Do you have to give birth to be a father?
Huh?
Is that why you're upset? Sagan. It doesn't quite work that way, Sophie. Men don't give birth. Sagan becomes a father when Fermat gives birth. Oh. Fermat, will you let me see the baby? You've never seen a baby before? Not really. How interesting.
I'm sorry, you'll have to excuse Sophie. She says strange things sometimes.
No, it's all right. In fact, I feel much less worried than I did a few minutes ago.
Really?
I'm sorry, Sagan. I think I've been taking you for granted. I've been so worried about motherhood, I never considered that you might be equally concerned.
No, I am enjoying the side quest, but I'll confess the reason I was quietly looking so intense was that I was quietly catching up on all of the messages because I didn't want to have missed anything. So I'm here now, though. I'm caught up on everything you fine folks said.
It's me who should apologize. You're the one carrying the lion's share of the burden. From now on, we'll face our problems together for the sake of our child.
Yes. You'll have plenty to eat now, little one. I promise. Who are you talking to? To my baby. Would you like to try? Hello.
Oh.
It didn't answer. I don't think it likes me. Of course it does. It was quite a response, actually. Here, put your hand on my stomach. Oh, it's moving.
Yeah, those ponytails would slick back real nice, Pottery. You know what I'm saying?
See? That's how it communicates. In fact, right now, I think it's hungry. I can get food. What does it want? Maybe some chocolate. The kind from the Amarcian Enclave.
We are 5 steps ahead of you, Fermat.
The stuff from the...
Sloppy crablets! Okay, you got me. I wasn't ready for that on a Monday evening.
Okay, let's go to the fountain. Come on.
Please, guys, no sloppy crablets. I mean it.
Hey, wait a sec. That's your favorite food.
Stunted? What do you mean, Grail?
Well, as long as you're feeling better.
I guess we're off to the Amarcian Enclave.
Joke's on you. We already did that.
Sorry for the trouble. Take care.
So I had 2 thoughts, and then we can go on with the second half of this, but I was really enjoying this scene, despite multitasking and catching up on the messages, for 2 reasons. First, I was thinking, in a Tales game where so many of these characters have relationships that are kind of in their past or out of view, like, you know, Asbel's relationship with his dad who is deceased, or Hubert with his adoptive father whom he leaves and we pretty rarely see, just in a few side quests he flits in and out of, or, you know, Sophie with the people who created her. It's almost a similar vibe to something like Tales of Berseria, with a lot of relationships of absence. And so I was thinking it's really cool and interesting to see this fourth act that is allowing this party to see like a fully realized family unit, and to make sense of the kind of, you know, future families they might want to have, whether that has to do with marriage or just their found family or what have you, in a way that is at least pointing towards closure that, again, you don't oftentimes get in a lot of these stories, I feel like. Yeah, and maybe, Grail, maybe it has something to do with what I'm saying, right? I do feel like it's a bit of an unusual note to see in a lot of these Tales games, and so all the cooler that we are seeing it. Even when there are like couples who get together, like, you know, I'm thinking, for example, of, I think it's Edwin and Nancy in Tales of Fantasia, because again, I'm deep in thinking about Tales of Fantasia at this point. It's kind of, you know, you help them get together and make their love story possible, but, you know, you don't really see them having a baby and settling down on the other side of it. But the other thing I was thinking, specific to Tales of Graces, was, you might recall last time I was really stopping and appreciating how Richard, who had retreated into himself with Lambda while he was possessed, was now turning that sense of isolation and solitude into something positive that could actually be supportive of community relations, by giving Sophie his old childhood fort as a kind of sanctuary and place for her to gather herself, to bring her best self to her relationships with Asbel and everyone else. And so that got me thinking too, like, what an interesting and quiet parallel that they don't make a big point of, but I feel like it's there, where, you know, Lambda was this creature that was so isolated and, you know, so had such a hard time making relationships, and Emerald and Cornell had this outsized influence on him, and he literally retreated into a cocoon after all the abuse that he suffered. And to see something so pure that mirrors, in a lot of ways, that cocoon-like solitude of a child literally developing in the womb, and Sophie, who has all of these hang-ups that she's still trying to process with Lambda, having this very pure moment of being able to talk and commune with and relate to this pure and innocent child. Like, it feels deeply cathartic to me in terms of everything that Sophie has been through and that Lambda has been through, to be able to just bear witness and trust in the innocence of this life that is, in one sense, isolated, but in another sense, like, showing the fallacy of Lambda in the main game, even in that isolation, can yet be supported and empowered by his parents and Asbel and the party and everyone who would talk to him or her, depending on the sex of the child, even before they've been jettisoned out into the world and individuated from the mother. I think that's really cool. Okay, the only other one we need to do is Grail's side. Got it, Grail. Thank you. Assuming that's not just because of the name of the town.
Thermal, we brought you some chocolate. Oh, thank you. It smells divine.
What's wrong, Verma?
I think it's time.
Oh, is she actually going to give birth now? Speaking of things we don't really see. Oh, the way they chose to score this is hilarious.
What do we do?
It's like the suspenseful pre-battle music.
Like help and stuff. Call a doctor. Call a veterinarian. Call someone.
Call Poisson!
I don't think there's time.
This is bad.
Asbel's motions.
Everyone, stay calm.
Oh God, what do we do? What do we do?
If you keep yelling, the baby won't come out. Sophie's right, in her own way. Just keep your heads on straight and we'll all be fine.
Oh no, is Sophie actually the only one who's ready to hold the baby?
If it comes to it, I'll deliver the baby.
What? Sherry, can you do that?
Well, I saw several births while working in the relief organization. And besides, it's not like you're going to do it. I can help. Thanks, Sophie. Okay, hold on. Wait. We need, like, hot water and stuff, right? Right. Can you boil some? You got it.
Right, and I'll go try to find a doctor.
What can I do? Let me think. Sheets. Clean sheets. As many as you can find.
So if you think I'll just be outside.
Okay, goodbye.
No. You have to stay here with their mom. That's right, mister. You aren't going anywhere.
No absent dads allowed in this game.
Sagan!
The only way out of fatherhood is through death. Just ask Aston.
Hold on, Firma. I'm right here.
It'll be alright. You'll be great, Cheria. I believe in you.
Yeah, what's the worst that's ever come of a guy stepping out to get some milk at the corner store?
Thanks, Sophie. Push, Verma. You're almost there. Come on out, baby. You can do it.
Oh, that's awesome.
This is just wonderful. Welcome to the world, little one. Verma, can I touch the baby? Of course.
Oh, she can hold the baby. Oh, she can touch the baby at least. That's step one.
She's warm and soft. So this is a baby. It's okay, little one. This girl is your friend. Sagan, I want to name our new child Sophia.
Oh, that's awesome.
Sophia. It's a good name. Let's call her that.
I'll always remember that girl who stopped me from running out on my family every time I call my daughter's name.
Sophia. It's a name born from my name.
Oh, what a poetic and perfect line in this game that is so self-consciously concerned with naming and titles. It's a name born from my name. I'm going to write that down for when I scheme about future things to write about Tales of Graces.
In a sense, you're the mother of our daughter's name. I'm a mother? Hello, Sophie.
I'm not ready to be a mom!
I'm Sophie. I'm the mother of your name.
Oh, that's awesome. I loved that. Oh, godmother! Yeah, it is pretty hilariously PG for a birth. That's a great point, Grail. Yeah, you would think, especially after being through all of the grotesqueness inside Lambda's cocoon, the party would be ready for anything, but maybe there's a lesson in there about the nature of childbirth. In addition to being Asbel's daughter and a lover of crablets, Sophie is now a godparent too, racking up different aspects of her identity. I love it. With a new mystic art attached. I love that too. Where is she on her last one? Oh, she doesn't have anything yet. Well, we'll get to that when we get to it. I love it so much too because remember, as I think was mentioned, I forget which character mentioned this. Maybe it was the mystery woman last time. But Sophie as Protos Heis was literally designed to destroy an individual, and an individual that is very childlike in a lot of ways, with that kind of innocence and lack of understanding of the world and fragility, talking about Lambda, of course. So for her to have, through her journeys and the support of this party, come to a place where not only is she not bound by that duty, but also she's proactively taking on the care and support of similar individuals. Like, few better ways to show holistic, earned development than that, I think. Also, it occurs to me she's not in our party, and I want to rectify that. Let's try this. All right. So next up was the inn in Grailside. All right. From the cold and severe to the temperate and picturesque.
Something wrong?
No, I just spaced out for a second.
If you're feeling tired, we should rest somewhere.
That's not a bad idea. Maybe we should stay at the inn tonight.
Hey everyone, I just got us a reservation at the inn.
A considerate gesture from Asbel?
He must have been worried about Sharia.
What's wrong with Sharia?
The heat has gotten to her, and she's a bit exhausted.
What? Sharia, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. But why did you get a reservation?
Because tomorrow is the annual Lake Grail Festival. I thought we could take a day and check it out.
Well, that's fine. We wanted a room anyway.
Yes. Let's go rest at the inn.
And let's thank my brother for being so incredibly attentive.
Come on, it all worked out in the end, right? You're welcome? Hey, wait up!
Is it a Tales of festival inside a Tales game? I think the inn is down here, right? Yeah, I think so. Oh, that's awesome, Grail. Well, congrats on that process in your story. Did you have any particular approach to naming on this day that allowed you to make that progress that had previously eluded you? My kind of, I guess, spiritually similar side project that I've been working on was a dear old friend and fan of the site. I can't imagine he'd mind me telling you this. Reached out asking about kind of some of my research process in terms of how to go from the playthrough of a game to the publication of an analysis of it. So I sent him my thoughts, and I'd written up a little bit of this previously for our Patreon subscribers, actually, specifically on the process I took with my book on Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Wittgenstein. But it got me thinking a little bit more about just general remarks on that process of how to do research and structure analysis specifically around video game stories, because it can feel like, I think, a bit of a black box, especially if you didn't get exposure to the research process in college, but also because one of the things that is really fun but also daunting about video games is so much of it is first personal experiential in terms of you trying to make sense of your particular feelings and actions with the game, but then a lot of it is also objective and textual, and doesn't take you as its referent in the same way, and so figuring out how to adjudicate those can be a little challenging. So I have this half-developed thought, which I think might be interesting to write a fun and shorter piece on at some point. We'll see if it comes to fruition, but I have the sense, especially being so deep in JRPGs right now, that there might be a fun way to kind of stylize different research methodologies according to different party roles in a game. If you identify more as kind of a melee style of player, here's a way you can bring that spirit to how you think about analyzing a story and doing research and putting your thoughts together. Or if you're more of a supporter or a mage, here's a way to bring that ethos into it. And I think there might be enough meat on the bone there to say something interesting and substantive and, most importantly, useful to people without just being trite and forcing it, but just an idea I've been playing with as of now. And sometimes that's kind of what I had in mind in terms of the melee approach to it. Speaking of Grail, just being willing to sit down and vomit some words, because sometimes that's what it takes for me too, to just kind of get unblocked and start thinking about things. As they say, the hardest part is getting started, right?
My body feels so heavy. I must be tired, but I can't ask to rest. to be strong.
Hello? Please, are you with the relief organization?
But I'm so tired.
You must help us. We were making explosives, but something went wrong and... Oh, it's horrible.
Of course, I'll come right away.
Oh, are those references to something, Grail? That, I mean, that almost sounds Lovecraftian to me, but I couldn't place either of those names if my life depended on it.
It's a little early in the morning to be running off.
Asbel,
Hey, there you are.
I'm sorry, I had to go help more of the wounded.
Oh, well, I guess that... Geez, Sharia, you don't look well at all.
Oh, it's just Irish. Yeah, that tracks.
Are you alright?
Based on all the bits and pieces I've gotten of Irish folklore and stories about people going to Ireland, I assume that's the place that features in most of Lovecraft's stories. I'm Irish, so I can say that. That's how that works, right?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired is all.
You're burning up.
I'm fine, really.
You're not fine, Sharia. You have to rest. You okay? Can I get you anything?
Just keep holding my hand.
Aww.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I got sick as a ruse, Asbel, to get you to confess your feelings for me. Everything else had failed. I was running out of ideas.
Why are you apologizing? When we were kids, you always stayed with me when I was sick.
Yeah, because you used to cry and tell me I couldn't leave.
I did that? So why were you looking for me earlier anyway?
Oh, don't worry about it. It wasn't important.
I see. It's weird to be sick again. It's been a long time. Back then, I just wanted to be healthy so I could keep up with you.
I guess Sophie helped your wish come true, huh?
Yes, she did.
And once that happened, you raced past me and never looked back.
That's not true. I was always with you, Asbel.
Oh, that's cool. I hadn't really put together in my head, I guess, that when Sophie did her particle distribution into Asbel and Hubert and Sharia, the regenerative healing that she did was also presumably what cured Sharia of the sickness that had plagued her throughout her whole youth. That's awesome. One of those things that is very obvious once they say it or you realize it, but I hadn't put two and two together.
And now I see that you were always with me.
I suppose? You're acting kind of weird today, Sharia. This isn't like you.
Asbel, perpetually out to
Maybe
lunch.
it's the fever talking.
Go to sleep, okay?
I'll get stronger, you know? And then we can run at the same pace. We can do anything if we stay together, Asbel. We can even bring peace to Affinia.
I know we can, Sharia. Sleep well.
No.
I will. Thanks, Asbel.
That was sweet. It's interesting to watch their relationship unfold because, like I think I said last time, I truly, I don't know whether they're going to end up together at the end of this or not. So just seeing them wrestle with their feelings in this pretty organic way is really cool. Just watching it unfold. Land of the Young. Oh, that's a very cool name, Grail. And you're going to have to tell me more about this Celtic otherworld because I know nothing of Celtic lore, but that sounds fascinating. Is that the same thing as an underworld or an afterlife, or is that a different concept altogether? I like the sound of an otherworld. She had switched off of that for some reason. But everyone's still on the right setting. Good. Oh, but I went over there to check Order of Truths. In a high fever, her true feelings slipped out. Did she want them hidden or want them known? Oh, I don't know, game narrator. I didn't quite read it that way. I felt like she was being pretty aware of what she was saying and saying it with intent. But maybe I was just reading it wrong. Ah, heaven and such. Got it. Still, Otherworld. Very cool name for it. Mass Grave. Ooh, that's a haunting name. Speaking of Lovecraft. Yeah, that's very cool. And using kind of the shared lineage of the names to create another link between the places. That's great. I love the care you bring to thinking about the philosophy of naming different places, Grail. As you know from going on these adventures with me, I think you can get so much mileage out of studying and trying to make sense of why things were given the names they were in stories where the names clearly connect with and inform the various themes and messages that the overall artwork is concerned with. So it's really cool to see you working through that in your own work. All right, so we had that great moment between Asbel and Sharia. And now we can go back to the Toidles at the beach resort. All right. So much side quest cleanup before we head to Fodra. Is the beach resort a town? Yes, it is. Cool. Toidles, 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 Toidles. You're not a Toidles. Is the Toidles inside? Ah, yes. That big side quest talkie face really does help. Oh, it's coming. Is something wrong, Miss Turtles? Do you feel sick? That's not it. I'm about to give births. Oh, I didn't even realize there were male and female turtles. I kind of thought that they didn't have sex. What? At least I'm not the only one who had that reaction. Thank you, Grail. Give birth to what? A baby, Sophie. She's going to have a turtle's baby. Did not have this on my bingo card for this game. Whoa, this is like a really big deal. What do you mean? The ecology of turtles has always been shrouded in mystery. This could totally be the find of the century. Right, well, at least they're as surprised by it as we are. Come on out, baby. You can do it. Sophie, now the expert at assisting with birth after that one birth event that Fermau had. Here goes nothings. It's over. That was amazing, Miss Turtles. Congratulations. Wait, huh? Let me see. What? Is it not a baby turtles? Oh, it looks like a baby turtles. Maybe? The shell? It's in its shell? What is this? Whew! Thanks. I'm glad it's all overs. You did it. Now you're a mother turtles. Yes, I'm a parent now. But I'm gonna leave this baby here for the time being. I'll comes get him once he's ready to move. Won't he be attacked if he's left here alone? Nah, he'll be fine. That's why I gave birth on a peaceful beach, yeah? Interesting. I suppose if any place is safe, it's this one. Probably. Now we just have to make sure the baby isn't bullied, right? Because then he'll turn into Lambda and I'll have to kill him. Sophie, I think this shell thing is still just... I'm sure the baby'd be more than happy if you just checked in on him once in a while. Okay. Alright, I bet it gets going. Kinda makes the most of the rest of my maternity leave. How are you, Turtles baby? Are you doing well? You are? That's good. We should probably give you a name. Huh? You already have one? Oh, Turtles taught, huh? I see, I see. Oh man, I thought we were going to learn all about the ecology of turtles. Instead, the mystery's just deepened. Oh, I feel like I'm in Tales of Vesperia. You can feel the pulse of life. I know. Well, I think we're at least all on the same page as Pascal Grail, where what we just witnessed only raises like a million further questions. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, if I was reading Sharia right, she didn't even seem confident that it was a living being that the turtles had given birth to, but, I mean, it sounds like it's alive, and Sophie was able to commune with it in some way, so I guess the thought is that they are indeed just like cats, or antlions, or insert your favorite bizarre species that you get in the Tales series here, where they aren't either the animal or a human, but something sui generis. But yeah, I didn't expect any of them to sexually reproduce. I guess I was picturing something more like just two cells dividing completely without the input of any other cells. Just, you know, every now and then when no one's looking at them, the turtles just whoop, split in two, and that's how they procreate. Somehow, to me, that was more palatable than thinking of them actually sexually engaging with one another. All right, well, we saw two very tonally different births. That's something. It makes me wonder if we'll see any more births before this is all said and done, especially given the concluding scene of Act 3. You should definitely make it consistent across the whole story, Grail, because you know I'm a sucker for consistency. God. It was something. Alright. So we went there. Now there's a scene in the records room of the tower in Sabley's All. All the way back to Sabley's All. Oh, does that mean we can play Magic Carta again? Ooh, we haven't played that in a minute. That might be fun. Oh, but now we have all of those from... Was it Innocence that I don't know? So it would probably make it much, much harder. But that's got to be the fun of it, too. Maybe we'll do one round of it before we move on. Yeah. But then it just loses so much of the charm for me if it's just if it's an idle memory game. Like, the fun for me is in actually recognizing and being able to finish all of the references. But I suppose we could still wade through the ones that Aaron doesn't know in order to do that. Am I in the right place for this? You said in the tower, right, Grail? Oh, the records room of the tower. That's downstairs, right? Right. The Marcian records. There you are. Well, that seems like a nice, soothing sound. Nothing wrong here, I take it. Hey, Victoria! She did come back. I was banking on her being dust in the wind at this point. Victoria, is that you? Hello, Malik. Hello, everyone. Your timing is impeccable. She left her spear at home, though, Grail, I'm sorry to say. Good to see you again, Major Victoria. Hello, Asbel. Or should I say Lord Asbel? You haven't changed a bit. Your Highness, you shouldn't be here. It's too dangerous. Dangerous? This room hardly seems dangerous to me. One of the machines here is emitting abnormal amounts of heat. A researcher just told me the cause, but we remain unable to stop it. It seems a mistake was made while we were handling the machine. And you ended up breaking it, right? It's true. I can feel it getting warmer and warmer in here. This archive of wisdom was in bad shape to begin with, so maybe the circuit's shorted out. The closer we get to the machine, the warmer it gets. Are you okay, Asbel? Yeah, I think so, but it's definitely starting to get to me. Is that like a lambda thing? Does lambda get catalyzed with heat? Richard seemed really concerned for Asbel about that. This is madness. We have to stop the machine before this place turns into a sauna. Well, it's got to be something to do with lambda, right? Either that or Richard is just really overcorrecting for that time when he was possessed and didn't care about anyone. It should shut down if you touch the top and bottom right panels and the middle of the left edge simultaneously. But this heat is totally too much for someone from Fendel to endure. All right. As Malik, as your former colleague, I would ask your age. I was thinking about Asbel because of that conversation we were having. He's the gay. We solved it. That's the deep lore of the fourth act of Tales of Graces. Richard is the gay all along. I was planning to help anyway. Wait. Because it's so hot? What's going on here? That's what I want to know. I'll say this for this stream. The characters seem to be disarmed at exactly the same things that we are. So at least we're on the same page as them about what makes sense in this world and what doesn't after however many hours we've spent in it at this point. It's a bathing suit. Don't worry. It's a bathing suit. Fear not. Here we go. It looks like the forced shutdown function worked. Is there a possibility of this kind of thing happening again? Oh yeah, it's busted now, so if you fiddle around with it, it's likely to overheat all over again. Hey Doug, welcome back. It has been a while. Nice to see you again, my friend. I hope you're having a happy new year so far. The president will want to know about this. You're part of Strata's military, right? Perhaps you would be willing to inform him of what happened here. I would request this as well. Many lives could be in danger unless we act. But I think the really fun thing about it, Grail, is it totally is round robin in terms of which character is the butt of the joke in any given side quest or scene. Like, I don't think anyone is categorically safe from it. I forget if I read this line. I'll read it again. I would request this as well. Many lives could be in danger unless we act. Yes, of course. I'll have a subordinate take care of it. By the way, Victoria, what were you doing here? I came to Strata on a diplomatic security mission and was making inspections on the way back. While wearing a bathing suit? Asbel, you are forbidden to speak further on this matter. Understood. Understood. Yowza! You Knight Academy instructors are scary. Well, the heat has died down, so perhaps you can see fit to putting your clothes back on. That goes for you too. Sheesh, Stratton military officers can be pretty scary too. So yeah, I guess the best explanation we have is that because they were managing the emergency shutdown inside the Archive of Wisdom and it was even hotter than it was on the outside, they just stripped down to be able to manage the heat. But yeah, that was A pretty long walk to a short joke, even by like post-game Tales standards. Yeah, Doug, you should go back and watch some of the VODs on the YouTube channel at some point, because I know from all of your speculation you'd probably get a lot out of it. But yeah, the long and the short of how the main story ended, because now we're in Act 4, which is basically a post-game story that they added several years after the original game was published. The way the original game ended was the party confronted Richard, which was possessed by Lambda, basically this abused child of an alien at the center of the world, and Asbel was able to basically have this kind of spiritual dialogue with Lambda, convincing him to trust that the world isn't the kind of thing that would always betray him, and there's a lot of beauty in it. And Lambda argued with Asbel, saying that he had never known or experienced the world to be that way. And so Asbel, in this really touching and moving way that was grounded in everything Asbel had been through on his journey, said, you know, I understand where you're coming from, but I want to make you an offer that I can show you a different way that the world is. So come with me, inhabit me the way you inhabited Richard, and I'll show you all the beauty that there is in the world that you never got a chance to see. And so Lambda took him up on that. So now he's within Asbel, basically, you know, waiting for Asbel to make good on his promise to show him a different kind of world. A very touching and unusual kind of conclusion to a JRPG, as I talked about at that point, but I'm definitely still thinking about it and processing it. Yeah, talk no jutsu, exactly. And because Dan was here and we wrapped up the main story together, and we were even continuing to talk and think about it afterwards, and we really couldn't come up with any other really satisfying parallel examples of games, and especially JRPGs, that end with that kind of conversation rather than the combat defeat of an enemy that just concludes things once and for all. And the more I'm thinking about it in relation to the prelude with which I introduced this stream, and Lambda being a very different kind of antagonist because of the way he basically expects and proactively responds to conflict rather than actually constituting a source of conflict on his own. I wouldn't be surprised if that had a lot to do with why that confrontation happens the way it is, because basically the thrust of what's wrong in the story is just that this being with so much power doesn't trust anyone, and so it's not a conflict that can be resolved by defeating him in battle. That would only reinforce his view. It can only be resolved by opening him to trust and changing his mind. Yeah, well, and a lot of the third act was focused on showing why he would, in your words, Doug, deserve a pardon, because really, like, as seemingly wicked as he was, he did end up being represented as this basically child entity that was brought into the world, given a sense of self and a model of what it is to be human, only to be abjectly abused by researchers on that other planet, Fodra. And so he came by all of his distrust and survival instincts, honestly, in a really sad way. But also shows in the perennial Tales question of, is this antagonist beyond saving or not? I think this game does a really good job in explaining and justifying why Lambda is the kind of antagonist that can be redeemed and saved, in contrast with someone like, say, our favorite example, Mythos from Tales of Symphonia. Alright, oh, the next and last one is, if I want to die, challenge the master class in Warrior's Roost. I don't know if I ever got past the regular level, and we're stronger now, so what I'll do is I'll at least go back to the Roost for that. But we don't have to dwell there, and we can head to Fodra after that, as we please. Alright, friendos. I mean, yes, but Grail, my interpretation would also be, remember, like, one of the main problems with Lambda, which I think is also a really cool way of symbolizing how someone's distrust of others can spread and be contagious and impact those beyond him, and poison communities. He was also spewing out monsters all over the world, right? So maybe Lambda didn't kill a bunch of people with his own hands, but I think we have reason through some of the scenes that we see to believe that his monsters probably killed more than a person or two. Doug, I'm so glad you came back, even for the few minutes you had. It's great to see you. I really hope you're doing well in this new year. And yes, we're back to the same schedule, so doors open and hope to see you again, my friend. Cheers. Oh, is the stuff that Warriors Roost has in the main game no longer here during Act 4? Is that the story grail? I didn't realize it was partitioned like that.
I have always wanted to come to this place.
So you can challenge Riot Peak and test your skill?
Right. And also meet Ombre Noir, the mask of justice.
The Black Man?
Ombre Noir.
Ombre Noir?
He makes his home at Riot Peak and protects the island. He invites warriors.
Oh, yes, he's the one who broke up the conflict when we came here in the main story.
Desire for peace. Whenever innocents are in peril, he leaves the island and emerges as a powerful force for righteousness.
Yeah, but wait, hold on. I thought only the Guardians live on Riot Peak.
You are correct. Ombre Noir is a character based off the Riot Peak Guardian.
Ah,
Wait.
Riot Peak Guardian fanfic.
Guardian?
You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Wow. I've always wanted to meet him.
I even got his autograph.
Richard outed as a fanboy.
Incredible. You must show it to
Hubert
me later.
also outed as a
Why wait till
fanboy.
later when I can show you now? It's right over there in my luggage.
Oh, let's see.
Those two sure are chummy.
Man, I should have asked for an autograph too.
This makes me feel a lot better about all of my fanboying in Japan and all of the things that I've been showing you in my show and tell over the course of the last few streams. At least the Tales games deeply get it and support it. That's how I choose to read that sketch. Would be worth it to make a second save if I actually do. Do you mean make a second save now or make a second save when we go back to the main game? Well, we have a million different saves anyway, so I can just make one for safety here. Let's just see what they have now, and my guess is based on what you've said, they will promptly slaughter me, and then we will go forward from there. Oh, we need to fix the elevator? Oh, Pascal will do it. We've stumbled into another quest. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Me, I'll do it. Pick me. Clang-a-lang-a-lang. You okay? All set. Thank you very much. That was very generous of you to help. Oh, that was a cinch. It looked like old Amarcian tech, so it was really no trouble at all. Boy, that's such a funny cutaway that they had Pascal do that. It didn't even rate a title for her or anything. Maybe it was just a progress check to make sure that we had Pascal in our party so that we didn't go after it like too early in the fourth act before we added her to the party. Weird. We're currently holding the Masterclass tournament where you change party members every 5th floor. Oh no, I'm getting acid flashbacks to the end of Tales of Eternia. This is I don't consider this a spoiler, but if those who haven't played it want more insight into what I was saying when I was shuddering at the memory of the EX dungeon and saying that's where I draw the line in terms of what I will complete, the entire conceit of the EX dungeon in Tales of Eternia is difficulty cranked up to 11, and you cycle between all the different party members in very baroque and difficult to manage ways throughout like a nightmare scape of a dungeon. Okay, start with Asbel. But I do feel like I've done a moderate job of getting around to playing all the characters in Tales of Graces during our time together, so maybe it won't be as awful as I expect. He said, instantly jinxing his run. The tower welcomes all comers. Those who fall are forgotten. Those who run are scorned. And that's all I'll be reading of the MC, because I think I read it quite a bit when we were doing the tower before. Ah, damn. Good memory, Grail. Well, hopefully that won't handicap me too much. Maybe I wasn't thinking this through, though, because if the floors get harder with difficulty, maybe I should have saved Asbel for higher floors. It is kind of interesting. I love a good fourth act for making you reconsider things that you never gave a second thought in the main game. For instance, Asbel's little battle dialogue, "You won't live to regret this," when now he's wrestling with like, oh, what is the meaning of death? And like, what are the implications of someone ceasing to exist? That makes that line hit a little different. Oh god. I didn't even get past the first floor, but that's because I was greedy. Oh man. Alright. I'll try one more time and then I'll hang up my spurs. I'll start as oh, why don't we try Malik? It's great quotes all the way down, dude, I'm telling you.
Focus, this'll be tight. Ball! Groundbreaker!
Malik, keep a distance! Malik, you're useless up close! Malik, how'd you already get poisoned?
This is trouble.
I love the way you end that, Pottery. I feel like they need to find a way to solve this with design for me specifically. I'll say, though, for what it's worth, I don't know if that's as specific to you as you think, although we've said so many times we're on the same page about so many things, so it might just be an us-specific thing, which is to say, I definitely deeply agree with you. Like, I'm experiencing this with Tales of Hearts right now, and I think I only didn't experience it with Tales of Graces because I've played it before, but Tales of Hearts, really interesting group of characters with a bunch of fun and distinct playstyles. So I really want to try them out on the one hand, but on the other hand, like any Tales game, it's such a deeply character-centric story, which is focalized through a main character, that I feel like I'm gonna not understand it in the way that the game wants me to if I swap out and focus on characters other than the main character, at least on the first run. Even something like Tales of Vesperia, where we've said before, like, part of the magic of it is that Yuri enables everyone else rather than having it be his story per se. Like, I kind of feel like you need to, at least on the first playthrough, play as Yuri in order to arrive at that insight and appreciate it for what it is, you know? Oh, thank you. I forgot about that, Grail. Oh, that's hilarious. Well, that looked really cool. It didn't do much against that Roper, but I did like how cool it looked. That's true. I did appreciate that they forced me to play as Gaul, if only for a moment, because he's so fun. We said this last week, but he keeps speaking up in the best and, like, you know, in turn, most heartfelt and most hilarious of ways in this fourth act. I really feel like he's carrying the post game on his enormously broad back. Come on, Grail, I'm doing my best. There you go. I did the thing. See, I listen to you every now and then, Grail. It's just hard with characters I don't know as well. Oh my god, there are so many ropers. Are you kidding me? This is just mean. I know you told me I was gonna die, Grail, but I still don't appreciate this. Oh, okay. Those ropers are easy ropers at least. I thought I was gonna have it on that last Elif break, but I couldn't pull it off. I'm still trying for it. It's on the list. It's not equipped? Oh no! I thought I did it last time. Maybe it auto moved off of it. Oh, can you? Hilarious. I'd obviously completely failed to realize that. There. Well, we have that at least. We have one piece of the puzzle. I'm gonna try. Maybe that can be the victory in the Colosseum, even if I fail to actually clear it this time. Even if, I mean, that's a foregone conclusion, but maybe I can at least get his hidden mystic off. The next time I have max excel do the mystic art, okay. Oh, is that the new tier of mystic art we've been getting? One that only goes off when you're in excel mode? I hadn't looked at the conditions for them. That's cool. Oh man, I really want to see Asbel's if it has something special to do with Lambda in that case. Oh, come on. We're so close. At least let me get a mystic before you kill me. It wouldn't let me do it.
That wasn't pretty.
I was hitting the button for it and everything. It's L1 or L2, right? I tried it with both of them because I couldn't remember which one it was. I'm trying, you guys. I don't know why it's so hard for me. I would boo me too. Boo all you want for that. Especially in a Colosseum. A Colosseum is nothing without some good boos.
We will survive.
Fuck you, Grail. I'm trying. It's not a long con. I really want to see it too. Malik is one of my favorite characters. All I want is more Malik. Well, at least now I have a character I can feel decent playing. Immediately falls down. That's what I thought, but I promise you, I was hitting L1 when he was in Sonic Mount. There's not more to it? Some secret Konami code that you forgot to tell me? Oh, maybe it's that I was just pressing it. Alright. I'll take the L for that. I know what you want me to say. I'll say it. My bad. At least now I know. We'll get it before the Tales of Graces stream is over. That's my promise to you. Maybe not tonight, but before we put Tales of Graces to bed, we will see that damn mystic art. Don't know why I had so much trouble with that one bug. Ugh, why are you so big and gross? Creepy scorpion, why?
Okay, let destruction reign! Fly! Ha-cha! Roar! Draw! Demon Fang! Gotcha! Here! Ha! Strike! Not yet! Ha-cha! Not yet! Fire Surge! Strike! There! Ha! Now! There! Dragon! Charge!
It's the most backhanded compliment I've gotten in a while, Grail, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Strike! Be gone! Charge! It's over! No mercy! It's time! It's
Yeah, that was my problem. I wasn't holding it with Malik. I was just pressing it. Ugh. Undone by the difference between a press and a hold. My wrestling days are all coming back to me.
Pulled it off somehow.
Okay, well, we got 2 floors done. Thank you, Grail. I appreciate it. I'm in good company, at least, right? It is funny to me that, of course, on the stream that I start with a substantive discourse on the theming of this 4th act, we're spending a big chunk of it in a Coliseum, but hey, it's Tales. That's consistent with the typical journey through this kind of game, and I love it. Wouldn't have it any other way. Those were the 2 characters I felt most competent with. Let's do Richard. No, MC, I don't have anything left. I never did. That's my secret. Not archers. Why?
Lightning blade, fly through! Stand enthralled in your scarlet cell, infernal prison!
Overkill, but I'll take it.
Take this, Hurricane Blast! Bring wind! Come, ghastly fang! What is this?
Ugh, the paralysis arrows. I'm having acid flashbacks to when we first encountered these enemies, and you rightly pointed out they're the worst, Grail.
Soul Reaper! Hurricane Blast! What is this? Lightning Blast! What is this? Fly through! Soul Reaper! Rising Phoenix! Lightning Blade! Bring wind! What is this? What is this? Lightning Blade! Fly! Lightning Blade! Come, ghastly fang! What is it? Lightning Blade! Harden!
It's kind of funny that Richard's floor is a bunch of soldiers and knights.
Lightning Blade! On guard!
Fending off another coup.
Destiny calls. Do you dare witness its aurora? Lightning blade! Fiery beast! Stand enthralled in your scarlet cell. Take this! Fiery beast!
Oh no, it's Victoria in a swimsuit. I only just noticed that. Victoria in a swimsuit, why? I wasn't ready. Yep, I think this is where I fail. This is where I fail. I'm no match for the power of that swimsuit. I thought I was going to get her for a second there. Damn. I feel like that was not the worst for not having played Richard since the like very beginning of the adulthood arc tens of hours ago. Carbon rod. All right, that's something at least. I mean, of course she's too hot, Grail. Why else would she and Malik have put on those swimsuits, right? Right? That's the explanation we arrived at. All right. So I think we are now all cleared to go to Fodra, right? Unless there's anything else on your list, Grail, that we failed to consider. And my quest for the hidden mystic continues. All right. Leave the atmosphere of Aphinia. Home to the mother planet, off of the satellite. It remains very cool to me that this whole story is fixated on a satellite world, like a moon. Very much a reversal of a lot of the worlds that we get in many of the other games. I don't know whether and how that relates to all of the antagonistic weirdness I've been mulling on with Lambda this stream, but I feel like there might be some there. So... Tell us Asbel, okay.
Fodra is just as lovely as you said it would be.
Ever the sarcastic one.
It looks bad now, but a long time ago it was teeming with life. What's that? Over there.
Looks like flowers.
It's beautiful.
Ah, our mysterious woman manifests.
It's her.
Boy, she looks a lot more like Sophie than I clocked the first time. That's not what you want.
Brace yourselves. Pascal, is there anything we can do?
I sure wish there was.
Look, it's Telos Astu.
Oh, I've been saying it wrong. Tell us Astu, I guess. Thought it was Astway.
Oh man, I thought we were total goners.
That's right. The classic late-stage villain laser. Basically handheld mana cannon by whatever name they want to give it. And can you remind us what that Irish translation is, Grail? Just so we have it and can think about it as you're talking about your writing. Yeah, that's a good point about the map too, because I remember we were talking about that way earlier in the stream. And that's a good point. Both the topography and also just the size of the map. Like I remember we spent some time much earlier in this playthrough being struck by how relatively small and unsophisticated it seemed relative to many of the other worlds. But once you get the perspective that Aphinia is just this small satellite derived from the main home planet, even that makes a lot more sense. Which makes me think, and this is nice because we didn't really close that map conversation during the main game, but seen through that lens, it seems less like the map was some weird oversight or represented in just an unusual way that didn't gel quite as well, and more of really or early foreshadowing for aspects of the world that we wouldn't understand until way, way later. Afrian Way would be my best guess, but I know nothing about that kind of pronunciation. That would be my concern, Grail. I think it looks cool as a name, and especially like it tempts you to try to interpret and understand what it means and go translate it, which I think is part of the magic of names that we talk about a lot on here. I always just get tripped up with names that I feel like I don't even want to try to pronounce because I know I'm gonna fail. Like at least with Exilia, I had a sense that I was pronouncing it right, even if I was woefully wrong. But I felt like I knew where to start phonetically. Whereas with that, like it's more of an open question to me, which might be what you're going for. Maybe not though.
Is this really a city?
Supposedly, it was once a truly splendid sight.
But see, even Dag Faisal, like, you can work that one out phonetically. Also, I think my favorite thing about that name is just how much you love to hate it. Like, I like it. I'll say, like, for all of the ragging we've been doing on the Tales of Arise naming scheme, it's only put more fire in my belly to want to go back and like actually study it and try to make heads or tails of it, because I maintain there is still something there. I know I'm in the minority among the Praxis gamers, but just the more you look at the sophistication of naming in the other games, the more it gives me faith that there was something they were going for that's worth unpacking. It just needs to be unpacked. That's the key consideration.
And now it's fallen to this. How sad.
There was a girl in the meadow. She was real, right?
I saw her with my own eyes.
Pottery, I feel like with you making comments like that, it's that old meme of like posting a status saying one like, and I'm going to do this crazy, unbelievable thing, and then you like the status yourself. Of course you're going to egg me on to do that, and of course that's all I need to actually go and do it. So buckle up. Careful what you wish for. Between that and what was Grail tempting me to do last week? Oh, like a full 10,000 word discourse on the intersection of like Japanese hot springs and tales storytelling, which I could probably also get away with. It's going to be a fun year for studies, guys. I got a feeling we're going to have some fun.
Does that mean someone's still living here?
Even if that were the case, it's unnatural to see an area so full of life on a dead rock like this.
Was that a monster?
Look out!
We will survive!
All right, into it. I do love me those revival recipes. Alith Mixer, my beloved. You called it early, Grail, and how useful and important that would
Not
be.
at all.
You're really coming into your own.
He doesn't agree.
If someone does this, I will literally breathe air. Yeah, pretty much. Tales of Praxis in a nutshell, right? I hesitate to say we're all same-brained gamers because I really do feel like so much of the magic of doing this with you all is we see these games and video game storytelling in general in delightfully different and diverse ways, but there's definitely enough of that hive mind for it to be fun and memeable, put it that way. It's a tactic. Maybe it's not the best tactic, but it's a tactic. We won the battle. Those are creepy looking creatures, the more you look at them. Like crystallized and transmogrified humans or something.
Needs to take a broom to this place.
It's a great model for suggesting something that was once human and no longer is. Or maybe well, since we're here on Fodra, maybe like a humanoid design that has somehow been corrupted, maybe due to the Fodran core, based on Pascal's speculations. It was a book, right? I don't imagine we'll have it with us now, but but we can look at the Collectopedia, right? Sellable items, Nightwater, suspicious powder. Was it this one? No, Chronicles of a Distant World. That was also an interesting one, though. Because I remember it blew our minds when we saw the description of it. It's like, this is the explanation. The theory of evolution. A book that chronicles everything from the past to the future, right? Because we're like, is this the score? Why is it not the most valuable thing in this universe? Also notice there's a tree on the cover. Is it Yggdrasil? Is it one of the other mana trees? My brain is in a puddle on the floor. Can someone please get a bucket? Maybe it has the answers to what's going on with these monsters, though. That is an interesting tie-in between the plot of the fourth act and a little throwaway missable detail of the main game, which, based on a lot of our observations in Dawn of the New World, is perhaps more the rule than the exception in terms of how the Tales series platforms into further content in a narrative continuity.
I'm trembling.
Sorry about that.
I will slay all who oppose.
Yeah, I keep trying to play as Malik and then chickening out and giving up. Yeah, maybe it is easier to just default to him, because I suppose it's just as easy when we get up to an Elith break to switch to Malik using the D-pad. So better to just default to Asbel from the get-go. Ooh. See, that's the real pang of the Japan trip, when the first item in your cooking menu is unagi don, and you have vivid memories of delicious eel in Japan. I know. I'm such a sucker for eel, which is funny because we were talking with some Japanese people over there, and their preconception of Americans and foreigners was that eel is very outside our typical palate, but oh man, there's something just so delicious and like a perfect mix of steak and the ocean and like bitter but sweet flavors, and the texture of it is, and you can't get anything like the eel over there, in Colorado at least. I was gonna say in the US, but I mean, you know, if you're somewhere like Seattle, you're gonna have better luck than landlocked Colorado.
Stand strong.
The purple guy in Heart's opening. I think I just did Grail because it's been a minute since I watched the opening, but I think because his name is Amethyst, right? If so, I think so. I actually hadn't clocked that he was someone from the opening, but I'm in the Colosseum sequence in that town, hunting after that particular shard of Kohaku's right now. So I think actually, if that's the character you're referring to, meeting him was literally the last thing I did before I went to bed the other night, which is the furthest I've gotten. But yeah, still loving it. Still really excited to see where it goes. But if that's not the character you're talking about, then no, I probably haven't yet. Oh, I love that, because actually after the previous short story, which I loved in the flooded town with the mysterious girl, going to the Colosseum town actually felt like a little bit of a like a downgrade in the pacing. Like it kept my attention a little less, but I'll tell you, hearing that piece of advice from you is all that I needed to dive back in and get really excited about it, Grail. So thank you. Came at just the right moment. Oh no. His Elith break was faster than ours. There we go. All right. That was so worth the wait. That was the coolest fucking thing ever. Oh, I don't know if I've ever seen anything better in a Tales game than that. Oh. I'm so glad you guys kept reminding me of that. Because I don't even know what I was expecting, but I was expecting something more like an amazing display of swordsmanship and mastery, as opposed to, hey, remember that giant wind cannon we were talking about that Daus and Mythos and everyone else have? Malik has that on his back as a joke. Oh, man. Well, that made the whole stream worth it right there. Forget about the Colosseum and all of this narratively substantive stuff. A man speaks with his back.
Looks like that was the last of them.
Oh, no, and for sure, Grail, and I wasn't, I certainly didn't mean it as a knock against Hearts. I just, you know, it's a corollary of the fact that games have upbeat and downbeat moments is, I think, especially in games like Tales, which are so long and have so many little short stories contained within them. If you find one that hits you just right and is really moving to you, as was the case for me with that one I was talking about, it can be really hard for you to keep your like personal momentum going once it moves on to the next one, you know? Not to say that it's not worth keeping it going, but I think that's just an interesting aspect of working through these long, rich tapestries of games that we all here love so much. Yeah, it was literally my first time seeing it, Pottery. I only found out about it because you guys were talking about it. I was very cursory in my first experience with Graces. Remember, I literally didn't even play the fourth act before, so there was a lot of it that I had left unexplored. But yeah, so much the better to experience it for the first time with you all. Oh, that's great. I'm going to steal that in-joke, Grail. So know that now there's a random video game philosopher in Colorado who is in on the joke with you guys. And no one's going to get it, except maybe Evie, who will judge me for it and probably use repeat arts back at me in response. She'll just get really fast and destroy all my stuff. It'll be great.
What do we do now?
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking in terms of secret mystic art, but that is the perfect kind of thing to have as a totally missable secret. Because it's just the right amount of camp and silliness. Reminds me a little bit in tone of like the Phoenix Norman in Zestiria and Berseria.
Let's start by investigating the city.
Even the hidden comic relief, which makes it even better somehow. Oh, the Excel Mystic art for him is also hilarious. I'm so excited about that. All right, that's the next one on our list. Put that up on the board. We'll tackle that next.
Okay.
Oh, you little automata. Are you okay? Life has not been kind to you all. 3 search labora located computer. Oh, that's right. I forgot it literally has etc. in its name. That should have been a tip-off that it's hilarious. He really is the perfect personification of all the boys being back in town. Warning, warning, monsters, lambda, chusness, alert phase from 8 to 9. I feel like this seems like a repeat from when we were here last time, because I seem to remember one of them talking about consciousness, and I was interested to see if the idea or theme or concept of consciousness would recur in a way that I had forgotten, but that doesn't seem to have happened. I mean, Lambda is obviously conscious in a way where, you know, him coming to consciousness made trouble for the world and incited the story, but I was wondering whether, you know, more of the metaphysical substance of what they were working through would have to do with the nature of consciousness, which I didn't remember and doesn't seem to have come up again. But we're not done with the 4th act yet. Amara recorded everything. Oh, the next scene is in B1. Okay, thank you, Grail. Got miso. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, very broken. It is sad. I mean, it's sad and kind of funny that you have that whole, like, kind of throwaway scene of Pascal fixing the elevator in Warrior's Roost, but there's seemingly nothing that Pascal, the brilliant engineer, can do to fix and help these poor automata, you know? And I get it's like, it's foreign technology, she wouldn't know where to begin, it's much more advanced than even, like, the Amarcian tech that she's familiar with, but it's still tough. Oh man, you guys know how to get me more excited for this next Mystic Art. Well, if I waited for like 50 or 60 hours for the first one and it was this satisfying, let's see if we can accelerate the timeline to the next one, because it'll probably be even better. Ah, got him! That's my one dad joke allotment for the stream. I'll reset at the start of Wednesday. Oh, cool. We can make miso stew. I know I've told this story before, but... Oh, we got a new figure. A Sharia figure. Statue of Mercy covered in dazzling amber. Doesn't it look like someone you know? I love that. Yeah, I discovered the existence of miso soup through Tales of Symphonia. And it's come to be one of my favorite, just hearty, warm you from the inside soups. So it was great to have so much of it and so many cool variations of it in Japan. And now I'm back in the US and very sad. Silver figure, a sculpture of hope, given an air of mystery with silver. It looks somehow familiar. Oh, cool. We can give the figures to a robot here? Awesome. I'll have to keep an eye out for that. Baked potato, classic, classic. Oh, if we can get a white ring, then we can make something new. Alright. Oh, did I not give Sophie the Tales of Hearts gauntlets? Dumb Aaron. Alright, there. Well, fix that. We'll just dualize real quick and then move on. So those aren't ready for dualizing, but these are. No, Grail, I didn't want to put you on the spot, but since you were talking about naming in your work, I had a feeling you were putting the pedal to the metal with your writing, and that's awesome. I'm really proud of you for that, my friend. Any more progress or stuff you're working through that you want to share with us? You know I'm always stoked to hear about that. Alright, I'll just tag up on that save circle and then we can go down. It seemed like all those poor automata were singing the same songs that they were the last time we were here, so I don't think we need to explore too much. Yep, just as heartbreaking with just the same text as last time, so remember that one. Origin. All happened to Fodrick. Research Elith born there. Fodrick continued research Lambda. Video Emerald Foundation research. Room below, ground level records passed quietly. Protos Heis back, people too. I don't think this is where we want to be. Oh, sure. So when you say extra scenes, kind of thinking about it in the game sense of like side quests or optional content or stuff. That's a really interesting idea of just trying to solve the problem of how would I work that into a non-game medium like a novel. Yeah, I wouldn't even know how to begin wrapping my head around that. Maybe like appendices at the end or something? Doesn't quite hit the same way though. This isn't quite the same thing, but one of the many cool things I love about Jorge Luis Borges, this really well-renowned Argentinian writer who did a lot of cool things with metafiction and stuff like that, was he would write some of these stories that were kind of like fictional reviews of these fictional books that he made up.
Sigh.
And he would like use a lot of like footnotes in the stories to like add commentary and optional details outside the main text, but in sort of a very narrative forward way. So there are some cool ways you can play around with form like that.
What happened?
What's this?
Oh yeah, as hypertext, that's a good idea. And I don't know the world of like hypertextual online fiction super well, but I think what you're talking about was a big thing for a while, where like different parts of a story or like related fictional content would be networked together on a website. It's like, as I understand it, that was a really popular kind of early to mid aughts thing. So yeah, especially if you want to imbue it with that kind of gaminess or choose your own path through the story, that could be a really cool way to do it. Yeah, maybe something to keep in mind is something you can add or bolt on later on, because I feel you. One obstacle to take on at a time, right? It's hard not to impede your progress with once you see the full manifold of everything you want to do. Like, it's exciting, but it can also give you a bit of choice paralysis or make the mountain seem too big. Oh, this must be the video footage they were talking about. The automata, I mean. Always, Pottery. I want all your recommendations. Shame on you for even having to ask.
What was that?
It's a foregone conclusion at this point. I'm telling you, Grail, you'll have at least one built-in guy who would play any game that you used to breathe life into your story, and who would want to talk with you about it and talk about it, and that's me, so you should. It does look a little spammy, but all of the links to the stuff that I've published start with aterriblefate.com/, so I'm on to talk. The Page of Ted. Oh, okay. I see I see why you mentioned this in line with the conversation we were having. All right, well, that's the next work break that I have sorted. Thank you, Pottery. Oh, I'm excited. Between that and Inscription and all of the tail stuff, I have my hands full in the best of ways. Can always count on y'all for that.
I think the light was some of Fodra's Eleth. But in that case...
The building on that map looks to be some kind of facility.
Eleth Research Laboratory? Huh. I bet they were researching Fodra's core there.
Can you locate its position?
Yep. Let me just send the coordinates to the shuttle.
Too polite for your own good. You know we're going to always want it, and we're always going to give you crap for it looking scammy anyways. You can't have one without the other. We're dependable, at least, and consistent.
Sweet! Now we can just zoom on over there.
If monsters are in this city, I hate to think what it's like outside.
Probably super
Do
good.
you know what's happening at the lab right now?
Looks like we'll have to go there and find out.
Looks like it.
Pascal, can you find the meadow with the flowers? Well, that crazy lady blew us way off course. But yeah, I think I could find it again. I feel like I have to meet that girl.
What do you think?
I've been wondering about the meadow myself, but I think we should check out the lab first.
Does that work for you, Sophie?
A nice mirror of the main story, gathering research and background context before you go and confront the thing. Just like they did during their first expedition to Fodra, before going back to deal with Richard and Lambda. I know, the perennial problem, Grail. I'm going to tell you what we said last time. Like, find someone who can code and who you can sell on your vision, right? So that they'll be with you for the whole ride. Whether that's a friend or a freelancer or what have you. Easier said than done, I know. But I wish that for you because I can feel how vividly you see it. And I hope that you can breathe that into reality one day. Because I've said it before, I'll say it again, I really mean it. I get so excited just at the tidbits of the story that I get from you, so if I could sit down and play it as a game, that would be really cool. Oh, the hard life that you lead, Pottery. A hockey team that wins and wins and doesn't know how to stop winning. Always a pleasure, buddy. I'll see you back here on Wednesday, all right? Be good. Don't have too much fun. A new humanoid we can give these dolls to. All right, excellent. I will keep an eye out for him, her, it.
What is it? I see.
You understand what he's saying?
Not really, no. Sai, do you want to come with us?
No.
Is that okay, Asbel?
Of course.
Can you adopt him too, Asbel? Make our family bigger, Asbel. When am I going to get a little brother, Asbel? I ask and ask, but you and the mom you haven't picked yet never oblige me. Yeah, because there's so many interesting possibilities for why Sai wouldn't be able to speak, right, Grail? Like, maybe that was never coded into Sai in the first place. Maybe Sai lost that ability in the way that these other automata are broken, or maybe everything that happened here was so traumatic that Sai has just stopped speaking in the way that a traumatized kid would. Like, it's crazy how many kind of diverse yet awful options there are. Alright, do we have a sense of where the new automaton is? Little Q activated Erst Ephinia. I talked to you already, right? New style, humanoid, ultimate battle weapon. So now I'm feeling like some of them are saying new things, which makes me think. So I would have thought that ultimate battle weapon is in reference to Protos Heis, but now I'm worried it might be in reference to the girl that we haven't met yet. Near the central staircase, okay. Yeah, we definitely hadn't heard anything like that before. Alright, well, let's check over here at the shuttle bay. We were here before, but maybe it just procced? No, that's the same. Looks like everyone back there is the same. Up to the first floor. I don't really see any here. Maybe up on the second floor. We didn't go there last time. Yeah, I know we were talking about this at the start of Act 4, but it's really interesting how deep we got into the game, and what a vivid portrait of Lambda we got, while still understanding relatively little about the planet or the cosmic structure. That's pretty unusual for a Tales game. Like, certainly you're only going to get that kind of background information and research at the point when it becomes relevant to the characters in the present moment and what it is that they're trying to do. But usually the arc of a Tales game makes that relevant, whether it's early on or later in the game, which would be an interesting kind of comparative study to do, to see like the different points in a game's arc at which like research into the nature of the world comes in and you learn about the world that the characters inhabit. So like, for instance, in something like Tales of Eternia, you get some of the details of that really early on. One of the first places you visit is like the research center of the world, but then you also get a very different repository of cosmic information much later on when the context is different. But here, like, you get through the whole game knowing a lot about Lambda's personal story and just the nature of the world, even though that in large part brought it about, the details of it being largely incidental to the nature of Lambda and how you need to confront him and deal with him, right? So a pretty interesting color for a post-game that we're presumably going to be going to this research center and learning more about the world that we explored in the main game, only now in this kind of extra inning that we have. So even compare it with something like Beyond the Dawn, right? Like, you get more research repositories in Beyond the Dawn, but that's specifically in reference to this new plan that's being enacted by the central antagonist of that DLC. It's not really like you're learning more about the underlying structure of the world in the process. except insofar as, like we were talking about at the end, maybe it gives us a sense that the great spirit of Rena's intentions manifested in several different plans and scenarios over the course of history. Living despite expectations. Well, you know what I'm going to say about that. That sounds like a very Tales theme, very JRPG, and something Aaron is very on board with. So beyond theme, and you don't have to give this away if it's something you know but you don't want to share, like, since you have such a clear vision for the project, Grail, is there a particular message that you want to share or express to your reader ultimately through the story that you want to tell? Have you gotten that far yet, or are you still kind of working at just the characters in the story and intend to arrive at what you want to say with it after the fact? Which, looking at your second message, maybe it's more of the latter. Care to roleplay? With the right item, I can help. Oh, fun! So we can roleplay using the dolls that we have. We got Sharia first, so let's start with Sharia. So what does this mean? Who wishes to be Sharia? Asbel, I feel like, is the obvious choice. Many thanks. Sharia lookalike. Oh, is it a costume? Like, did I give him a Sharia costume? Because that's hilarious. That's not what I was expecting. Sharia lookalike. Let's roleplay as another character. Your prompt. A woman in a miniskirt who helps those in need. Transform to Sharia at status menu. Does that mean his character model just like gets replaced with Sharias or something? Wild. I feel like this raises so many more questions about the technology of Fodra and how it relates to everything else in the game. Like the humanoids and Lambda and all of Cornell and Emerod's research. Literally 2 Sharias. Oh, I see. So the gameplay utility of it is it's a way to have more than one copy of the same character in your party. That's interesting. Huh. Well, then who do I want to have the option of subbing out for another Sophie? Maybe Sharia, I guess? That seems like an option. Sophie Mimic. That's so cool. I can't really think of an analog in the other Tales games that I've played for something like that. And that seems like kind of a, semi-logical extension of what we know about Fodra without knowing enough to fill in all the details. The idea that, they're engaged with humanoid research and engineering these creatures that are able to emulate humans in one way or another. So to be able to use various tools to actually get one human to resemble or act like another through cultivating a certain skill set, like, doesn't seem outside of their expertise. Hello to you. Oh, I see. Yeah, that is a pretty practical use of it, Grail. Although, like, practical, and I'm sure especially practical for you being a super fan of Richard, but man, I gotta say, like, even thinking about that now, like, I feel like the thematic dissonance of that would break my brain to have Richard, like, teaming up with the party in an effort to go and save Richard. Although I say that out loud, and maybe that would also be another, like, interesting mystical layer to the journey where, like, after having gone through the whole journey, you can, like, invoke an aspect of Richard, like the good part who sees who he actually wants to be and the connections that are meaningful to him to, like, call himself back from this abyss of loneliness in Lambda. That's kind of cool. I think I just talked myself in a circle into liking it. Oh, Tales games. A bottomless wealth of information and insights and theme. We learned that Creus is actually artificial ore. Right. It all makes sense now. The city is floating, but its height is falling. I think this is new stuff, too. The name of the colonial satellite sounds like a password hint. Well, we did that. This explains how Creus was created to transport Eleth. It says Creus X to stabilize Eleth particles. Alright. I think we did what we needed to there. Unless there are any other detours, Grail, I think we can head to the research facility. Hopefully learn more about the core of the mother planet. How about that? Oh, but the shuttle bay is in the basement. I like that too, Grail, because when you say it that way, it doesn't really sound like you're changing the theme. It sounds like you're looking at the journeys of the characters and making the theme a little bit more precise, because certainly the idea of people expecting things of you and you doing something else, like that's intimately related to responsibility too, right? It's just more specific. So it sounds like one of those great cases that writers and creators talk about in terms of following their characters and letting their characters show them what the story is about, and you know, the kinds of concerns that you want to meditate on quite specifically with the details of the story. And I feel like the more you can zero in on that, the more the details you haven't thought of yet kind of present themselves to you and help to flesh out the world even further. So from my seat at least, it sounds like you're doing all the right things to even further firm up your immaculate vision for the story. Hold off for now. Oh, we can just teleport? Okay, well, I'm confused. But I thought Pascal said that she put the coordinates for the lab into the shuttle. Maybe she's just saying we need to go there using shuttle mode as opposed to actually going into the shuttle. It's very confusing. Eleth Research Laboratory. There we go. Alright, well, we got there. That's what matters.
What happened here? It's very different from the other places we've seen on Fodra.
Yeah, this is a whole new lab, right? One of the first new areas we've been to in a while.
I think it's kind of creepy. I'm guessing it's been this way for at least a few hundred years.
Whatever happened took place the same time Fodra was dying.
Dying.
Oh, right, that thing that's existentially bumming us all out. It can happen to planets too. Macrocosm and microcosm. Keep an eye on that.
Right? What is it? I knew it. She's calling me.
Strange. I didn't hear anything.
I think we should wrap things up here as soon as we can.
Alright, skip by save point. Now I'm excited. Maybe this means we're going to learn more about how it was that Fodra actually came to die and the details of their plan to recapture the energy from Ephinia, presumably in order to restore their planet.
Hey, what are you thinking about now, Pascal?
Well, I'm trying to figure out the language Sai uses. If we can understand each other, I'm kind of hoping we can be friends. Oh, but will it be easy becoming friends so quickly? Sure. I mean, you and I are already buds, right? Yes.
Are you getting jealous by any chance, Sophie?
Jealous?
Oh, right. Jealousy is when...
I know. Jealousy is what a crafty woman causes in order to get her hooks deeper into a man.
You've been talking to Captain Malik again.
Oh, I want to be a crafty woman!
Reminds me of one of my favorite skits with Presea in Tales of Symphonia. I think I've told this story before, but they're talking about Zelos, and someone calls him a philanderer, and someone else is like, I don't know what that means. And Presea, like she's quoting the dictionary, says, philanderer, an insincere man who plays around with many women. And that was the first time little Aaron had ever heard that word, and that is how he learned it. Grail, I might have shared this before, but a few years ago, Dan and I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing one of the people from Yacht Club's team, the studio that made Shovel Knight, which is a great game. I think it was one of their graphic designers, Nick Wozniak. And he gave us a lot of really cool insight into the development process of making Shovel Knight, which is a great game in the event that you haven't played it. But one of the things that he talked about actually was their creative process for like getting to know the characters and the story. And one tidbit that has really stayed with both Dan and me, which I thought was really cool, was after they had come up with like the bare bones of the different characters who were going to be in the game, one thing that they would do in their like group communication software as a team, I forget if they were using like Slack or Discord, but something like that, is they would put the little like pixel profile pictures of the different characters as their profile pictures, and they would like role play as the characters having conversations with one another. So by like role playing as the characters, they would actually come to better get to know those characters and think about what really drives these characters, what are their personalities like, what do they want, and I feel like that's something that is pretty common and useful amongst writers when, you know, once you get a sense of the world you want to play in and the characters you want to focus on, like there comes a certain point where it's almost sort of a spiritual letting go, or you breathe life into them on your own, on their own, excuse me, and you kind of look to see what they're showing you and what their concerns are, rather than just trying to like impose your own view as the writer on what it is they should do and the point that you want to make. So obviously I'm more on the interpretive and analytical side of the creative process these days, but that always struck me as a really interesting way to think about how to create these kinds of stories and works in the first place. Not a lot of options for the path to take. That is interesting, though, that one of the doors wouldn't open, and one of the other doors, Asbel said, let's not go this way, let's look for a different way. Like, you would think that either both would be locked, or Asbel wouldn't be interested in going in either of those directions. Like, I'm not sure what makes the difference between those two routes that are blocked off. Yeah, very bleak, isn't it? Combined with what looks like miasma in the air. Oh my god. Speaking of Tales of Fantasia. Yes, we would also accept Tales of the Abyss, absolutely. It gives me more confidence that, yes, we are going to learn more about how it is that the world died in the first place. Because it seems like it's striking the right kind of tone for that. Like, this is where everything ended. And this is why it ended. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Let's keep moving.
There's some pretty great arts all around in this game. I'd forgotten that. But some that are just so beautiful and such heavy hitters. What more could you want, I ask you? And so many mystic arts, and so many different kinds of combat abilities. Oh man. If you heard of this game, Tales of Graces, you should really try Tales of Graces.
I don't think we'll be able to proceed.
If only we could fix the elevation difference.
Check that machine gizmo over there. I think its switches correspond to the colors on the floor. If I mess around with it, I'm sure something will happen.
Something meaning what? Something good?
Just gotta give it the old ka-chank
It should be
ka-chank.
fine. You seem oddly calm about this.
I trust Pascal implicitly.
To the fact
She
that
is my
Pascal's
love.
Messing around will bring us to some sort of painful finish.
Hubert, you want Pascal's messing around to bring you to a painful finish?
Oh no.
Maybe she's into that sort of thing. Who am I to judge, right?
I did not say that.
Oh, that's a pretty funny one. Pretty risque by Tales standards. Yeah, I kind of assumed that Asbel's... Oh, no, it hasn't unlocked. It almost has. In the midst of uncertainty, a new hope arises. I wonder if I can push that over the edge. Do we have any of those items? No, we just have the ones that restore Elith. Bummer. Gerp. Yeah, I can see why you would dislike it, Grail. Let's see. Okay. Oh, I see. Well, that'll get us the chest at least. That's something. Senel's Karta! Ah, finally, a boy I recognize. She wants to hurt something we care about. Excited to, because my tentative plan is I'll go back to Legendia and give it a fair second chance after Tales of Hearts. And that way we can just be plugging through Exilia 1 and 2 on the stream in tandem. I see. So I think... Yeah, it's a puzzle of figuring out what the right path through is based on all the relative elevations of these. That's got to be it. Yeah, it is a bit of a headache, isn't it? Oh, that seems like it might be it, though. And then I just need to raise the yellow one, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. Okay. There you go. Well, good to have an excuse to do it, Grail. I am kind of like... I'm happy, even though I didn't quite plan it this way, that I saved it for near the end of my adventures of the Praxis playthroughs, because I think it's now that I really have adequate recent experience with all the Tales language that I really have the endurance and point of view that I think will make the difference for me actually going the extra mile with all of the individual character side stories after the main storyline, whereas I just didn't have that in me last time. Good question, Grail. Let me check.
To pay your respects.
Okay.
Not like that.
Have you gotten your last one, King Richard? No. In fact, he's not even working towards it. I don't know how he switched off to a different one. There we go. Well, now he's working towards it at least. Yeah, this music gets inside you, doesn't it? It's like, I read it almost like, evidence of a disaster, we arrived too late to stop, that kind of thing. Just deep-seated regret and remorse. Yeah, I'm a fan of that.
Study up on the basics.
I don't know that it's one of my favorite new tracks we've had in Act 4, but it definitely does the job for me. It's interesting that it doesn't have more of a tinge of melancholy, given how melancholic the navigation theme is for this dungeon. Rosemary. I know, it makes me feel for them so much, especially after all of the conversation we were having in Telos Astu, did we decide it was? Or Aste? About the poor humanoids who were broken and couldn't be fixed. Like they have just enough semblance of humanity to acknowledge what the end means in a game that's so concerned with death, right?
Be careful, everyone.
Well, they're not easy battles, but they're not wiping the floor with us at least. Knock on wood. I know. Well, you see why all of Fodra hailed her as such an innovation, right? Because she's kind of like these, but these are definitely poor imitations by her standard. Man, those are some serious Hearts gauntlets that she's rocking. I dig them, but they are a lot. They match her new outfit quite nicely, though. Yeah, it's interesting to think of her cosplaying as Anna's. I feel like they don't have that much in common, but well, I guess you could at least say they both have kind of difficult parental relationships and complicated involvement with broader organizations. But I feel like when you're being that generic, most Tales characters are alike.
That's what I'd expect from Asbel's instructor.
Your skills haven't dulled either, Your Majesty.
Oh, right on. I'll have to check that at the beginning of next stream. When Sophie enters Excel mode, the following support effects are active. CC recovery rate increases, continually recovers HP, and forward steps allow her to spin around an enemy and attack it from behind. Ooh, that's cool. Very dynamic and flexible, just like our Sophie. Yeah, I guess Sophie, just with all of her, you know, her inner nature as Protos Heis, and how, like, that causes her to persist in a different way than a human. I just, like, I feel like she's older than Annis is, but I understand what you mean, that they both fit into the, like, the stereotype of the young character who's, like, learning a bit about the world. Although it's interesting, like, I get the sense that Sophie has been around for longer and kind of has more substance to her, but Annis is also definitely kind of like, she has a cynicism beyond her years in the way that she approaches the world and getting her way and protecting herself. So they're kind of both older than each other in different ways, I guess. Patty's something else altogether. I don't even know how to begin to compare Sophie and Patty, or anyone and Patty for that matter. Patty's just unique in every sense.
We won't fail.
Okay, nice. We're on the other side of that miasma now. I'm glad you got that correction in, because I was sitting here scratching my head of like, how is Grail going to try to prove that Annis is Jade? That seems like some serious witchcraft. Yeah, I found myself having trouble with Annis a little bit on this most recent playthrough. Like, I understand what you mean, and I also think that Annis does not make anything easier for herself or her family. Like, I think she kind of goes out of her way to create some of her own problems. How the hell am I supposed to get to that chest? So it won't let me push this up more. You're tearing me apart. What does view console do? I don't really see how viewing the console is supposed to help us. Maybe that's what I'm missing. So is that seems like that space is aligned now. Okay. You know, I got a lot of love for Carol, especially after taking my time to work through Vesperia. I don't know, though. I feel like he has some competition. Like, Renwell is not as young, but she's pretty young. She's, what did we decide, like 12, 13 or something? She's not that old. And I think she does a great job in wrestling with her family issues and figuring out how to survive in the world and everything like that. And Merity, I forget what her technical age is with all of the mischief about Celestians, but I fit her into the mold of a young character too, and I think she has so much on her shoulders to deal with and does so quite admirably. 14 and 15, got it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this one is just making me feel like I'm dumb. There must be something I'm missing about the puzzle, like the order in which you change the elevation of each of the types of hexagon must impact like the options you can take with the other ones. It must be more interdependent than I realized. So otherwise, I don't know how the hell you're supposed to make sense of this. I fucking hate these blue ones. can we step down? Is that a thing? No, we can't step down. It has to be entirely level. This is making me feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like this should be able to go up one more, and then all my problems would be solved. So this one is at this height, okay. If that one is at the right height, then... that means that's the right height. It might also just be an issue of showing depth, though. Yeah, okay, so that's a path. So that can get us to the other side. Oh, okay. I know that would be a fun bit, Grail, like reimagining Tales games as open world games where you can just like platform off of anything. And messing with the other characters' heads. So now we should be able to go back. Yeah. The issue with it was it's not easy, at least for me, it's not easy to maintain good depth perception from that angle. So I was thinking that the hexagons were in a different position relative to the horizontal plane than they actually were. A gas control lever. If you attach and turn it, you can control the release of gas. Oh, that can probably get rid of the miasma, right? My modest color blindness also probably did not help me, if I was being honest.
Remember your strength.
Well, I'm hoping we're not too far from a save point, and we can call it for the evening. I don't want to go too past the hour for people. Oh, you're always of use, Sophie. Don't be silly. I wonder if Asbel's fourth mystic has popped yet. No, not yet.
You'll rue the day I drew my blade.
Oh, that's interesting, Grail. And it sounds like, from the way you said it, you didn't do that intentionally either. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty unusual to have the main character as someone who's younger than the rest of the group by a significant margin. I certainly can't think of a Tales game like that, at least. I just did a mental inventory. No, you don't get that in everything. The ones that I know of, at least. Huh, probably. I totally missed it, but that would be my guess, if that's what you saw. It wouldn't be the weirdest thing that we've seen on Fodra, Grail. I direct your attention to the handheld mana cannon by which we were invited in. Laboratory room. Maybe we should cook. I have to imagine they would give us like a save point before a fight, but this room, it gives me anxiety.
This looks like some kind of lab.
What does it say?
The data's all damaged, so it's It's kind of hard to tell. I think it's some kind of research log.
Oh, interesting, Grail. What do you mean?
Signs of change apparent in Fodra's core. Further details are unfortunately unclear.
Oh, we are going to learn more about it. I'm so excited.
Researchers who have been sent to investigate are due to return shortly. We asked Director Cornell for his opinion, but he has yet to respond. He appears to believe that his research with Lambda will somehow provide us with the answers that we seek. In the meantime, we've asked Emerald for her assistance.
As we all know, she's great.
Developments in our quest for the truth. The birth of the little queen. In truth, we're not quite sure how to handle this predicament. Our initial research team was completely annihilated. Survivors from the second team, however, managed to bring back samples for further study. Unfortunately, these survivors are in critical condition and are undergoing medical treatment. They aren't expected to live much longer. We must not let their sacrifices be in vain. We will begin researching the samples immediately.
So it's Lambda and Emerald again, is it?
And something called the Little Queen.
Any idea what he's talking about?
Fodra's core produces Elith, which has an effect on creatures the core created. Nothing more.
Do you know something, Lambda?
I too was created by Fodra's core. It is a trivial matter for me to observe the flow of the core's Elith.
Is it possible the core will affect you? Or Sophie?
Do you fear the evolution of my power? Are you afraid of losing control?
No, it's not that. I'm just worried that you and Sophie might be hurt.
Asbel, your eye. Are you okay?
Me? No, I'm fine. Are you okay?
I think so, but I feel strange. I'm not sure what it is, but it's like I felt it before.
If everyone's ready, we have more exploring to do.
Let's see what we can find.
So the core, the Elith from the core is exerting influence on those things that were created within it, including Lambda and ostensibly Sophie, based on the way in which she's acting. And we got a nice thematic linkage in terms of some of the themes we were talking about at the top of this, with the theme of evolution, which was more segmented prior to the stream, but that notion that you might fear either losing control over something or fear something losing itself and ending up hurt by evolving due to some kind of external influence or something that is not authentic to what it is or what it wants to become, in the way Asbel fears the influence of the core on Lambda for the sake of Lambda's own well-being.
No two ways about it. I don't like this place at all. You hate this place? So what place do you like, Sharia? I like Launt, and I love that flower meadow on Launt Hill. And Asbel? Do you love Asbel?
Tell us!
Asbel?
Tell us!
That isn't really the kind of love I was talking about. Oh, because I love Asbel. Well, if you
Nice.
put it like that, then I guess I do too. Hooray! We both love Asbel. I also love crablets. Crablets? They're so delicious. Do you hate crablets? I don't hate crablets, no, but I wouldn't put them at the same level as Asbel.
Sophie going from being the literally least human of the party to being the one who is most willing to vocalize her emotions. How about that? Oh, that's interesting, Grail. Yeah, so another great case of feeling out what your story wants to say and what the parameters need to be as you get to know it better. I love how much you're taking your time with it and getting to know it as you spend more time with it. That's really inspiring in more ways than one, my friend. Yeah, I get that. It's a good control mechanism and gating factor on your buying too many figurines, though, right? I mean, I'm always grateful, like shopping around on things online if there's a crazy shipping time or some other like barrier to entry, because I know that if that weren't the case, I would be buried in way too many things in my apartment, even more than I already am. All right, my dear friends. I could go for longer and uncover the secrets of this core and what is going on with the forebodingly named Little Queen, but we should be good to everyone and wrap up for the evening. Grail Buddy, as always, pleasure working through this with you. And Pottery, it was so great to see you too. Looking forward to seeing you again on Wednesday, my friend. Sorry to miss you for the last bit of this, but I know you. I think you'll catch up. And Doug, it was so nice to see you again. Sorry to have missed you, but I hope you're doing well, and I hope that you will pop in again. Such a pleasure on the top of this first full week of our adventures together in a while. Long overdue. Yeah, it was fun. I had fun too. This was such a fun one. We had such a nice cross-section of talking and thinking about Japan and thinking about video game storytelling and storytelling more broadly with all of the great windows into your work, Grail. So thanks for making it one of those streams too. I always love thinking about all of these things that we care about through the lens of a creative writer who is right in the thick of it with his own work. So really, thank you for being so generous with that, bro. That means a lot. And we have gone all the way from working through very mundane side quests, thinking about the truly everyday business of living with the magic and the horror, if you want to call it that, of childbirth, to Sharia's feelings for Asbel, to now the totally foreign, once again, back on Fodra. So I don't know about you, but I'm back in the space of being curious to see how they're going to tie it all together, because man, they pulled it off in the base game, and I still don't quite have my finger on how they managed to do it, because I still maintain this is one of the most intimate Tales games in terms of very human character studies of individuals, and yet it also has some of the most alien and foreign feeling elements with everything that's happening on Fodra. So they managed to tie those together once before. I'm sure they'll be able to do it again, and I think in that last moment that we dwelled on with Asbel and Lambda, we're already kind of beginning to see the seeds for that with like what the thematic content of evolution might consist in, which can then give us a bridge between everything that's happening with the Eleth and the monsters and presumably this little queen and all of the more mundane matters of the human spirit that we were wrestling with back on Affinia. But they've got some work to do. I'm here for it. I'm sure as we dive deeper into this lab, we'll get some more answers, some more connective tissue, and probably a whole host of more questions. But this game, it really does seem to be, like any of the Tales games, the gift that keeps on giving, and I'm still kicking myself for not having worked through the fourth act the first time I played it. But better late than never, right? I know, and it implies the existence of a big queen too, that she's called Little Queen, right, Grail? So is that Sophie? Is that someone else? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, talk about a cliffhanger to end on. And like, it makes me curious as to how far through the fourth act we are also, because I felt like we were getting near the end, but we were also only just introduced to the name of this ostensibly key character, Little Queen. So maybe we're further than I thought. It's so fun to be along for a ride the contours of which I don't fully understand yet. Speaking of feeling out the contours of a story as you go, there's a lot of fun to be had in that exercise, both from the creator's perspective and from the audience's perspective. So nice to get those both in the stream. And you can, I will forbid you from talking about your own writing as your ramblings. That's the one limit I'll put on you, Grail. I insist that you talk about it as much as you want to, but you're not allowed to call it ramblings, because everything you say about it is cogent and interesting and so rewarding to us. So I will, we'll go back to where we began this stream. I will bully you into talking about it if you don't. How about that? Yeah, I think it'll be nice just to do a deep dive into this one, especially once we're done with the F arc, given how long it is, given that it was distributed across 2 releases of the game, and given that we had that nice break in the middle. I'll tell you, just for the sake of transparency and my wrestling with things, like we talked about this earlier when we came back from the break, but I'm still kind of having trouble with piecing together the different, like, just the history of the moves that the people of Fodra made in terms of doing research into their core and moving the Lestalia to Affinia to try to extract its energy, and how Lambda factored into it. There are a lot of moving pieces in this that I think feel harder to grasp and put together than in other Tales games, exactly because, as we were talking about earlier, a lot of those mechanics of the world and how it evolved are backgrounded relative to the intimate personal portraits of Lambda and Sophie and Asbel and everyone else whose history we understand much better than the history of the world. So it'll be really nice, I think, to unpack the overall architecture of how this world evolved, how that can be seen perhaps as a symbolic system for understanding the progress of the characters within it, how it all ties together. That's always the big question for me, right? At the end of the day, a lot of how I read these is asking, how can we interpret it in a way that ties together all of these threads into something that makes a single meaningful theme or message out of the totality of our experiences with it. Sometimes that's easy, sometimes it's hard. With something like a Tales game, even if it's a puzzle, it is always a rewarding puzzle at the end of the day, which is why we're doing this Tales of Praxis adventure at all, right? That's the best pitch and wrap up I can give. So I'll thank you all again. Grail, especially you, my friend, for staying to the end. It's always a pleasure to count on you hanging with me and navigating this stuff. But to all of you, a pleasure. For those of you in the chat, for those of you who are lurking, for those of you who are watching the VOD, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Beginning of the year, wrapping up this adventure, gearing up for some further ones, articles on the way. It's a nice time to join, especially the live book club. So if you're on the fence, let me commit one more act of bullying. You owe it to yourself, and you owe it to us to grace us and grace this conversation with your presence and your perspective. As with the characters in a JRPG party, you are irreducibly valuable and have thoughts to give to these adventures that none of us would have on our own. That's the magic of why we're doing these live book clubs, and why so many of these studies and analyses that we're getting at the other end are so magical and multifaceted, exactly because they've had the benefit of being worked through in these great multidimensional conversational contexts. So I will thank you all one more time. I hope you think well. I hope you game well. Have a nice little respite. Maybe I'll play some more Inscription. We can talk a bit more about that next time too. But we will be back same time, 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday. Rolling right into a Friday stream after that, and just keeping the good times rolling into the new year and already into February pretty soon, if you can believe it. Ooh, what is time? Maybe Tales of Fantasia will teach us that. Or maybe someone will teach us that, because it only gets faster, relative though it may be, as we said at the start of the stream. All right, dear friends. I've been your host, Aaron Suduko, the founder of With a Terrible Fate. This is Tales of Praxis. I'll see you back here in a short while, all right? Cheers. Good night. See you next time. Bye.